All right, good morning, everybody. Good hump day.
Mike.
Haven't seen that commercial in a while.
Is Geico the greatest insurance commercials, or?
Ooh, head of State Farm?
I think so, because I don't think State Farm gets creative enough. I respect
Bandalewski.
What about that Emu and Doug?
It's just too much celebrity stuff for me. Like, I respect the fact that Geico can go into many different characters, and they go to the drawing board. State Farm goes, how many famous people can we get in here to influence other people to buy our insurance?
Whoa. Wow, I take it you are not a State Farm customer.
I am a State Farm customer.
Okay.
But they got you.
I've been a State Farmer since, I think my parents were State Farmers, and that was just my insurance. I've stayed a State Farmer. I have not even cheated on State Farm.
Have you even looked toward being in other insurances than State Farm? Or have you just been a stater for your whole life?
Yeah. The only place I don't have State Farm is my house.
Okay.
Which, it's not the easiest thing to get home insurance for.
Wouldn't know about it.
Especially in an area that has hurricanes.
Sure.
But everything else.
Point. But you got a gator patrolling the neighborhood to make sure everything's okay.
Yeah.
Gators are scary.
That's why they protect the neighborhood.
Exactly. No, they're not.
We've talked about this.
This is such a Midwest thing.
I know. This is me being an uneducated swine in the terms of the fact that gators are probably, not that dangerous. And if you walk a certain way and act a certain way, you'll be totally fine around a gator. But for me, I've never
friendly if you shake hands.
Yeah, you go up, you can talk about your insurance. You can talk about what rates you're paying, and the fact that probably the gator can't get covered for State Farm. But overall, no, I've never really seen a gator in person, and so they freak the heck out of me.
They are more afraid of you than you are of them, unless you feed them. Or you walk a small dog near the shoreline when they clearly say, do not do that because there are gators in this body of water, and they will see it as food and smaller than them, and then they will attack it.
They're literal dinosaurs that can run 20 miles an hour. I don't get any sense of comfort thinking about an alligator being
especially if they're coming off the edge.
I've never seen a gator on full run. The gators that I've seen out of the water are on the that aren't sitting on the shore, are on a golf course.
Aren't named Tebow.
And they're not sprinting across the golf course. They are like Nebraska's big men this past year. They're slow and prodding.
They're there. They exist.
And that's why you're good.
They are not albino gators. They are full what a gator should look like.
Yeah.
But they just take their time going across the fairway from one body of water to another.
They don't slightly look like Doug McDermott?
No, I haven't gotten that close to check them. Look into their eyes.
Yeah. It's Dougie.
Yeah.
All right. 4 days from Selection Sunday, everybody. Hello, where the Selection Sunday will be a big day in this town.
You got your bag kind of empty or starting to fill up?
No, you know what? I have.
I've
just started laundry from the trip to Sioux Falls. I have so much stuff I brought back from Sioux Falls, so I have piles sitting on my island in my kitchen that I'm trying to figure out what to do with. Because you turn around and this is what, school?
I'm sorry.
We got a kindergartner over here.
I would like some. I don't know. You and I probably wear the same size shirts or hoodies or quarter zips or anything like that. I don't know. I feel like I'd regret it myself if I didn't put my hat in the ring.
He's excited
to get some Omaha memorabilia.
He wasn't here when you brought the bull market stuff back when. Okay.
I know. The only free apparel that I've gotten from the station is when I stole a shirt from under a cabinet, which was probably about 17 years old.
Smart move.
It was a nice shirt.
So you go to the NCAA tournament for the first time, you get a lot of attention. You get assistant college basketball coaches are slide into your DM to ask you about guys in the Summit League that are in the portal.
Yeah, that's fun.
You also get a lot of people want to play golf.
Hell yeah.
All right. Sharpie's going to be playing a lot of golf. Thank you, Omaha men's basketball. But no, I don't know. We're in transition. I'm sure Sunday we'll find out and we'll hear all the details of when we'll be taking off. But we're 4 days from Selection Sunday. Omaha actually announced that they are going to have their selection show at Mammal Hall, which come to find out during the discussion up in Sioux Falls about where they'd have this because Baxter Arena is unavailable.
Yep.
Because Omaha and North Dakota are playing hockey this weekend in the NCHC playoffs. So you're not in your home arena. For God's sake, we're not going to go to SAP. They need to tear down SAP Fieldhouse. I know it's helps out, but they need it. But it's coming. Did I just say that? Yes, I did.
Yeah, I believe that slipped out.
100-point restoration.
Yes.
Gary Sharp Fieldhouse coming.
No. We ain't restoring SAP Fieldhouse, brother.
Okay.
Yeah, something completely different. So
with a moat.
when they were discussing, like they were going to go to Exarban Cinema, where a lot of the teams that have been in the NCAA tournament from Omaha Athletics go. It's a great setup there. First question, a lot of people were asking, can you drink? Yeah, you can drink.
Hell yeah.
But then CBS wants to make a big deal of it, and with cameras and stuff. So then they're trying to figure out. I actually thought maybe the auxiliary ice rink at Baxter Arena, because they do that for graduation. You put some black curtains down, it would look really, really cool. But they decided on Mammal Hall. I've come to find out that a lot of people have no idea where Mammal Hall is on the campus.
I don't.
It's by me.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's
and
where
you're
they're
a
having,
mammal, so
that's where they're having their watch party. I think the doors open at 4:00. They're having a reception, and then of course the show starts at 5:00. So now that we're back, and you kind of like try and get
back into it,
in a rhythm, like getting ready to like try and win a tournament game.
I am the biggest St. Francis fan.
Yeah,
I am the biggest Lamar fan. Which
great donuts.
Weird thing. Back in November, because Lamar plays tonight to try and get into the tournament. Lamar and Omaha played like a 10 a.m. game in Akron at the end of a tournament, and it was actually a really, really good game. Both teams weren't playing very well at the time.
Sure.
And now both could be in the NCAA tournament.
That's
so
crazy.
I'm watching St. Francis, who bailed out, not bailed out, but they helped Omaha last night, pushing them closer to a 15 seed. And then I'm watching Robert Morris, and I'm thinking, has any player ever named Robert Morris played for Robert Morris? Because I think that would be fantastic.
Ooh.
Just like Bill
I
and
think
Mary.
that would be great.
Robert Morris, too, would definitely be like a 80s, 90s basketball player. Like, I feel like there was a ton of Robert Morris.
There was Chris Morris, played for the Nets and Jazz.
Or it'd be Robert Morris, but they would call him something different. Like, he would have a little, like, in quotations, like, name and
Bobby Joe.
Yeah, Bobby Joe Morris or something like that. Exactly.
Shout out Robert Reed.
That guy probably existed.
But every time I watch Robert Morris play, I wonder, has ever a kid named Robert Morris played for Robert Morris? And then I'm watching Maine, Vermont. I'm getting set for that on Saturday. Or Maine beat Vermont last night. So Maine is into their conference tournament, and they got a terrible record. So we're getting closer to a 15 line.
Well, Delaware couldn't do the job last night, unfortunately. That would have been absolutely massive if they could have knocked off UNC Wilmington, which that was a really good game. Wilmington pulled away at the end. St. Mary's and Gonzaga was also a very good game last night, too.
Gonzaga's going to, man.
Zaga's going to Zaga. Do you know Zaga was a favorite in that game, which was surprising considering the fact that St. Mary's as a whole, like 3 seed lines higher than them, and they were 17-1 in the conference. But Zaga, I'm pretty sure Zaga covered as well, if I'm not mistaken. So,
Gonzaga, with 26 straight years they've been in the tournament.
It's crazy.
They got a little bit of momentum going in.
They do.
And because of the really good metrics, they'll be a team that we'll all have debates about of how far they're going to go. Because I bet they'll be on a 5 or 6 line. Because their metrics are fantastic.
So right now they're on a 7, according to Shelby. Now, I don't know if this is updated past beating St. Mary's last night, which Mary's is currently at a 5 line.
But aren't they into the top 10 now in Ken Palm?
I can look at that right now. But
their metrics, I think, are more like in line with a 5 and 6.
The thing with Zaga, I think, is that like from an outsider, they're 9 right now in Ken Palm. Good call. St. Mary's yesterday is 22 on the Ken Palm currently. The thing about Zaga, I think from like an outsider perspective, is that like you're so used to them being on that 1, 2, 3 line, and they've consistently been there under the Mark Few era. Like when they're not there, when they're in a 6, 7, 8, you think it's a down Gonzaga year. You don't really believe that they're playing good basketball or they're reaching their expectations. But at the same time, it's like, and you know this, I know this. Like these 6, 7 teams are still pretty damn good. Power 5, Gonzaga adjacent like basketball team. So look, you're absolutely right. They're playing some of their best basketball of the year. And that's a team you kind of pinpoint teams that kind of need to win their conference tournament, not just because they need to get into the tournament to do so, just to get themselves going in the right direction heading into the NCAA tournament. I think Zaga was one of those teams. They looked damn good yesterday. They looked damn, especially on the defensive end. I mean, they were rebounding. They were crashing the paint. I mean, they didn't really allow St. Mary's to get an inch in that game at all.
They'll be
good.
They'll be a team though that'll get a lot of debate about how actually good they are. But last couple of weeks they've played much better. I mean, they got a good roster, and Mark Few knows how to coach the NCAA tournament, especially get to the second weekend. But will they be a 5 or a 6? The big boy tournaments are all in action. The one thing about this time of the year for the next couple of weeks is we get midday college basketball.
Big fan.
And I don't care if it's ACC crap basketball.
I don't care.
ACC,
It's still basketball.
ACC had 3 games yesterday where I swear to God, that was just terrible basketball. with 3 games where you don't know how to play at the end of the game.
Yeah.
The officiating was atrocious. But because of how great current college athletics are, we get Cal and Stanford playing in Charlotte in the next round of the ACC tournament.
They could play in San Francisco.
Just like everyone envisioned
Yeah.
in the heydays of Duke, North Carolina. You know what? I think someday we're going to get Charlotte, and I think Cal and Stanford are going to come way across the country and play in a conference tournament.
I think if you're shaking a magic 8-ball back about 8 years ago, if this was a potential ACC matchup, it would have said, "Oh hell no!" But no, I mean this is where we're at. But look, I know we all make jokes about like teams being in certain conferences being weird and whatnot.
That one is weird.
They should play in San Jose.
I'm not saying. I'm not saying it's normal, and I'm not being like, hey, guys, just like don't make jokes about it. I'm not going to tell you what to say or what not to say about weird circumstances of college sports. I do think, though, it's a benefit that all of this shaking and moving happened and all of this craziness occurred, and we only really had 2 casualties when it came to Power 5 teams staying in Power 5 conferences. Like, yes, are the logistics a nightmare? Absolutely. Is it a damn shame that we literally have to forfeit games because teams can't travel out to certain places to play in California? Yes. But this is kind of just the changing landscape and what we have to do. I'm not saying a fan of like Cal and Stanford being the ACC, but I'm glad it was only Washington State and Oregon State that suffered.
The ACC is only a couple of years away from falling apart when they get absolutely fleeced. But we get bad basketball and we get a grumpy Jim Boeheim, which...
Is there any other Jim Boeheim?
That was such a weird moment.
So the daytime basketball is great. You get off this shift, you go home, you flip on the TV, you're looking for stuff to do, and you got basketball.
We get to watch Richmond and Davidson after this show.
Yeah. You go into a seizure, or you get headaches, or you're trying to find the lost object when you're watching the Big 12 game. This is apparently the Big 12 women's tournament didn't get much run because that's the same court they used. Mm-hmm. And I made the comment last week, and then everybody yesterday, once Cincinnati and Oklahoma State started, lost their mind. I'm like, that's the same court they were using for the women's. But that court is one of those that just like TCU and Oregon are better in person than they are on TV. Like the TCU court, which I've done a couple games there.
Same.
It looks fine, but on TV it's like, oh my God. Like the Oregon court on TV. But you go and do a game in Eugene and you're like, you don't really notice it. I think the same thing at the T-Mobile Center. That court on TV looks god-awful, but in person, it's like,
That's great.
I tuned into the Cincy-Oklahoma State game very quickly after I saw the pictures on Twitter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really not like that against. I didn't think it was that bad. I'm being honest.
See,
I didn't think it was that
Normark's
terrible.
trying to reach the kids.
Well, that's what he said. He said it's for the student athletes.
I thought it was kind of cool.
Come on, bro.
I thought it was kind of cool.
Stop trying to expand the tournament.
Yeah.
Stop trying to tell me the court is just for the student athletes.
Yeah.
What they say.
Well, the other thing is they got logos everywhere, and I'm really surprised that it did not turn into a minor league hockey rink, and there were just logos like in the lane. But then, if you were watching late last night, the Southland tournament. Now that court's a banger. They got a gigantic trophy at mid-court, and then it's all logoed up.
Yeah.
I mean, I know everybody's trying to outdo each other.
Let me tell you something right now about the logos. So they got to make their money. All right, they got to make their money. Wind, rain, sleet, snow, they got to make their money. They got to put the logos on the court. I don't think it takes away from it. I don't
think anybody said it takes away from it. It's very noticeable. You turn on the game and you watch it and you go like, whoa, find the hidden object.
I'm not a detractor from I understand the whole why people may not like it. And don't get me wrong. Sometimes I'm like, guys, let's just do your regular mahogany wood court. Let's stop trying to complicate things.
What about parquet?
Look, parquet, mahogany, burgundy, doesn't matter. As long as it's wood and you can dribble on it, just get to the hoop and score some points. But I understand them trying to be cool. Look, apparently, though, if you're covering that tournament, you shouldn't even go to that tournament because you're so high in the sky. The press box is so high up there that it's hard to cover. Did you hear about that? The Jeff Goodman tweet about the Big 12. The press box is so high up in the T-Mobile Center that it's like kind of hard to see the court. Apparently,
I think it's always been that way.
Goodman was like, why would you even come to the Big 12 tournament to cover this game because the press box is so high up?
I think the overflow media is up high. I don't think.
Yes. Well, the beat reporters are down low, right on. So if it's your team that's playing, you get to go on like
just
the court
poor
side.
baby was upstairs.
You guys not know MSG. If you're not like doing the game, I think you're up further on the catwalk.
Yeah. Well, no.
That's great. People love nothing more than
poor media guy.
Media complaining.
They were like, why would you ever cover the tournament? Maybe because you get to watch 15 free college basketball games, get free food for 2 days, and like just get to hang out and
free
network
RC,
and like get to be in a pretty good environment and a very nice place that's paid for you to stay at. That's why you would go.
Yeah.
It's just a stupid comment from people on Twitter.
I think it's at the T-Mobile. It's the hockey press box.
Mm-hmm.
Which I don't know, have you sat in the hockey press box at the Chai?
I have not.
I mean, you're up there.
Not a terrible seat.
Stop complaining, man. You get to go to a game, as you mentioned, for free.
Plenty of room.
I don't even think he's there, right?
I don't even think he is.
Not anymore with that tweet.
I think he just saw the tweet. He just saw the picture of what the press box was, and he was like, "Why would you ever go?" I'm like, "That is one of the stupidest things I've ever read."
Because
it's a conference tournament. You're there. You're watching 15
So was
games.
his thing like they're
too high and you can't see the court.
They're ignoring the media?
Yeah.
The media that are covering the game that's going on are down on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly.
If your team's not in the game, your overflow seating is upstairs.
That's how it goes there.
You would think a guy who was in media for that long would understand that. Yeah, that's something that's pretty standard. But no, a bunch of people who don't understand the logistics of all of that are like dogpiling on the Big 12 for absolutely no reason. It's
people I know were getting at him.
Oh yeah. Oh, absolutely.
As they
should go at him.
Because they cover the game too, and they're hey, we're having a good time.
I will gladly sit up in the T-Mobile Center up on that hockey press box and have all the pizza and Diet Coke.
I miss covering that tournament. That was fun.
So now we know why you go to press conferences and games, just for the food.
No, we don't get fed anymore.
They don't feed them anymore.
You got to bring your own.
Yeah.
At the Nebraska press conferences, no more feeding.
Maybe
I don't know what they're going to do for the Monday press conferences, if they'll still put us up at Memorial and give us pizza. But as of like the regular ones, nope. I used to literally schedule my Mondays off of the food I would get at the Nebraska press conferences.
That is a very smart move. As a young college kid, as the reporter Matt in there trying to grab food, that was your lunch. That's a savvy veteran move.
On Mondays, I would not eat breakfast, and I would show up. No, not a joke. I would show up at the press box an hour beforehand.
Pants already unbuttoned.
And I would eat my pizza. I would have a pizza. I would have my salad. Then they would have like a beautiful selection of all the pops you can have. And then later on, they would bring out that like cranberry crumble kind of like cake. Wow. I would go and have like a slice of that. That was it, dude. That would fill me up all the way till like 6 o'clock. And I would just have 2 meals and I was done. It was great. That's why I lost weight. I lost weight on the beat.
Most people gain weight on the beat.
I lost weight on the beat.
Speaking of Lincoln today, there was football talk yesterday. Matt Rhule talked for 40 minutes.
Yeah, jeez.
Matt Rhule likes talking. May have caught a stray from Rich Rodriguez and Steve Spurrier yesterday.
may have might be an understatement, but
we'll get into it.
That was a long.
I don't know that TikTok is really a distraction.
That's a whole, and we can talk about it. The whole conversation of like social media and it being a distraction to players and all that type of stuff. We're at the point now where a lot of these guys are playing college football. They've grown up with it. Like they've grown up with the Instagrams and the Twitters and the Snapchats, and it's almost like it's a regular part of their lives.
Some of them have NIL deals to create content on TikTok.
Yes, that
are playing football at Nebraska. So it's just part of their deal. I don't know. Is it really a distraction? I know it's been brought up. Rhule brought it up. Rich Rodriguez said our guys are not going to be dancing in tights on TikTok or whatever.
Well, his funny thing was his ban was weird because it wasn't necessarily about the app. It was about it was kind of like a Manalytics a little bit. Yeah. He's like, you can be on the app. You just can't dance on the app, which is a really weird rule.
He's probably more into the image of what it is, but he's also a first-year head coach who hasn't coached these guys.
Sure.
So he's got
an older school dude.
He's got to put down his foot before he brings it back up and he lets them do things. I mean, hell, John Cook, who you would think, oh my God, we're not doing that. His players lived on TikTok, and they were actually really, really good on TikTok. But there is the good and the bad, and there's a quarterback in Nebraska who was a topic yesterday that he is on social media. It can either be great or it can be bad, but at the end of the day, whatever you do inside of a stadium is the most important thing. Not making a TikTok inside of a stadium. What do you do on Saturday inside of a stadium? That's all I friggin' care about.
I was about to say, do you mean like on Memorial Stadium? Like what are what's the content we're creating on the end?
I knew what you were getting at, but yeah, it's funny. You have to clear that up.
The only TikToking that goes on in Memorial Stadium is like recruiting stuff. I don't know unless somebody breaks into Memorial Stadium and does a TikTok on the field.
Would you? I was about to say, would that be
has
a
Gary
negative
Sharp
thing?
written all over it.
Do you think of Dylan and Emmett?
23.
It's got Val Midwest written all over it.
You think if Dylan and Emmett
Google
would
that.
What?
Val Midwest. Google it during the break. Google it right now.
Val Midwest?
Yeah.
Pizza.
Yeah. You don't want to break into football stadiums and start taking pictures and putting them on social media. You'll get a ticket from the Lincoln Police Department.
Okay.
But also in Lincoln today, the state basketball tournament begins. We got 3 classes, A, C1.
I don't think this is something that I should look up on my computer. I think I do know about that actually before having to look that up.
She disappeared.
What
happened to her?
Pretty
Did she get
sure
out of the
there
business?
were media members who knew her pretty well, if I'm not mistaken.
Talented
and that's
gal.
how I was taught. That's how I
were-
knew about that. If we're talking about the same woman.
Well, there was Melissa and then there was Val. And
I
yes,
think
a lot of people knew her.
The senator's speech. How about that? Oh, she's 5'10". Good size. She could play the 5.
D1.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Wow, this was a long time ago.
Yeah, it's probably 10 years ago?
Yeah.
She got in trouble when she went back to Pius X?
Oh, she did what now?
You got to Google that one.
Okay,
too.
okay. We can't
But
talk
state
about it on the
high
radio.
school
That's
basketball for the boys gets
That's a
underway
great
in
transition.
Lincoln today. This is the victory lap for yours truly. We no longer play in high schools. Okay, we play at the Devaney Center. We play at PBA. We have a banger of a day in Class A, which includes LPS. First time we've had an LPS on LPS team since 2003. But I found this out driving in this morning.
Stat.
LPS is on spring break. Because
so
you would have a large student section, I
was
would
about to
imagine,
say.
for Southwest, North Star, and Southeast, but they're on spring break. Because Class A schools get cracked for students not showing up, and the majority of the schools that are there are from Omaha. So unless you provide them transportation,
It's a tough.
students, unless like you're a prep or something, you're not going to show up. That kind of sucks that they're on spring break.
That makes no sense.
I hope people show up just to listen to the Lincoln Southeast pep band. But I
don't know the lay of the land here. Like, is in Nebraska and Omaha in general, is it really common for families to take vacations on spring break, or is it kind of a stick around? At least, like,
I do not know.
Where I grew up, we were more of a stick around town. Like, I never really went, and none of my friends really went on spring break or on vacation during spring break. Like, we were kind of just around and it was like a week off. I wouldn't know about Nebraska if that's a thing. So hopefully, at least for basketball's sake, there aren't too many people going out on vacation. But that's another thing too. Like, Illinois does that with the football state championship, where they play on the Friday of like after Thanksgiving, and they play like on the Saturday of Thanksgiving, where it's just like there are some people who aren't on the football team who want to enjoy the holiday, who don't necessarily want to travel 2 hours away, or in Omaha's case, a whole hour away on a vacation to go and see high school sports be played. But yeah, that's weird. Spring break to be,
and then
hate that.
And then the lead up, you make the state tournament, and granted, they've known for over a week there in the state tournament. But during state tournament week, you're not going to school. You don't get the excitement of being in the hallways and in class.
Yeah,
and
you don't
people
get the
getting
pep
you fired
rally
up.
or anything like that, or it's like you're not like, there is a bit of that walking around and being in class like the day of a big game, right? And like people talking to you, and
you
you're
wear
like,
your jersey.
exactly.
You're a senior in an all freshman class at Urbandale High School, and you're like,
John Moxon.
Yes, I'm on the varsity football team.
Yeah. Isn't that great too? Like, school doesn't matter that day a little bit. Like, you can be in algebra, you're thinking about the game. You're thinking about a dude who's all the way across like the state, thinking about how you're going to guard him, and you know that he's thinking about you too at the same time. You're both just on each other's mind. You're literally 200 miles away, just thinking about, all right, I'm gonna take this guy. I'm gonna beat this guy, while you're in civics class learning about the recessions that we've had in the past.
So everybody that is going to Lincoln, the weather's going to be great today. This is shorts and T-shirt weather, so enjoy. All right, coming up on the show, John Walker will join us, I believe, from the Mecca. Is he already in Gotham?
I think he's already there, if I'm not mistaken.
Creighton will be an observer today to watch Georgetown and DePaul play.
Ooh.
And then
they got to do
people
have to pay for that?
Remind me,
Jimmy,
basketball better than no basketball.
If I trudged through ACC basketball yesterday, you're going to watch DePaul Georgetown.
It is on Peacock, and I like their presentation.
My boy Troy D'Amico will be playing tonight, so I will be watching DePaul Georgetown. Go Troy. Go Downs.
The winner of that game will play Creighton at 6 o'clock tomorrow night on FS1. So John Walker will stop by at 8. Also later this morning, the player of the year in the Big East will be announced. Will it be R.J. Lewis? Or will it be Ryan Kalkbrenner? I think those are the only two candidates for the Player of the Year. That comes up later this morning. So John stops by at 8, and then Brandon Vogel at the 9:40 with, I'm sure, some takeaways from the media availability yesterday in Lincoln, that included the head coach and very, very conveniently and smart 3 prominent transfers who haven't been here very long that spoke. So there was good stuff there, and also reiterated the point that I made after we had him on the Average Joe Sports Show Sunday show. Rocco Spindler will be very, very popular in his lone year in Lincoln. He will be a man's man. I'm talking about all the offers I got to go play golf. He will have so many offers to do different things. I bet he cleans up on the NIL, but unique NIL opportunities. He's got a great personality. He's going to be a key guy. And when he said, because he knows how to say all the right things, he knows his audience, as they say. When he said we will be an offensive line driven program, that run the ball guy,
fullback,
is down on the ground right now receiving CPR for the last 15 hours.
He is a listen, and so I watch the Average Joe sports show.
Thank you for your support.
Of course. Well,
Thursday or Sunday mornings live at 10:30.
You're my guy, and everybody on that show are my guys, and very much enjoy listening to you guys. You guys are a great mix. He was very well put together in that. But yesterday, watching that presser, he is an incredible mix of a dude you would grab a beer with, but a dude who is smart enough where you respect talking to him. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying? Like, you take almost every word he says, not for granted. Like, you take it in stride. You listen to it. You nod your head. It makes sense. He's just a well put together dude, but at the same time, he's an offensive lineman. It's just it's a perfect mix for this town or for this state.
And he's got a offensive line name. Rocco Spindler couldn't play any other position except for offensive line. Now, maybe a punter.
Center.
Punter,
so
Rocco?
Nose tackle.
Punter would be, like, Rocco as a punter would be a good name.
No. I think with punters, you got to get really out there, like really, really out there. Like, not even
like
Rocco.
Mike Saxon?
Not even Rocco. Like,
Reggie
Wes.
Roby?
Ooh,
or like,
rest in peace. He was good.
Like weird, or you got to be like Patrick or John or Matt,
Rich Camarillo,
or Brian.
Like, no, you like you got to
Sam.
be Mason,
remember Brian Barker?
Like, you got to be locked in. Like, you got to be boom.
You can be a Jesse. You can be a Mike.
Yeah, Sam. Right, Sam Cook.
What about a Caleb?
Or exactly, you almost got to be like biblical to be a punter, or you got to be like
Ezekiel.
really, really weird. No, I don't know. I don't know if there's a Josiah punting anywhere out there.
A Josiah would be like a tight end. Ezekiel would be a wide receiver or a running back, or maybe be a slot back.
Josiah is an ultimate. Oh, you said it, slot back.
I like where this is going. Bible names translated to football positions.
Zechariah is your ultimate wide receiver. Malachi is a really good wide receiver name.
Jesus is a quarterback.
No, he wasn't.
You said Josiah was a running back. I was like, Josiah is also a power forward.
Yes, he is.
And a coach.
Right.
And playing pro ball.
Off and running on Gary and Matt. Lots to get to. We'll talk some football. We'll talk some KFC potato wedges.
Ooh, I'm here for that.
Oh, my God.
Let's go.
What about them?
It's called the Tease. Welcome. It's called the Tease.
I didn't
want them to stay with us till 10.
Oh, no.
Plus, lots on hoops. 4 days from selection Sunday, among other things. All of that ahead as we roll till 10. It's a Hump Day edition of Gary and Matt on 1620 The Zone. Hey, one thing about the clocks springing forward, and now the weather has been pretty good since been back in Omaha.
Decent.
I like it that it's sunny at 6:30 at night.
And nice.
I kind of dig that it's dark at 7 o'clock a little bit. Like we were the first day it happened, we were on the air, or like when the clock sprung forward, we were on the air. And I looked outside, it was 7:15. It was still kind of dark out.
Yeah.
I was like, I kind of dig that, it sets the mood a little bit.
Wait till 6 a.m. sun in the summer. You'll like that more.
I almost went to, it was like 5:30 yesterday, and I was just kind of bumming around town, like doing groceries. And there was a driving range not too far away from me. I nearly was like, you know what? I'm just going to go to the driving range and hit balls at 5:30 p.m. Isn't that incredible?
Like it's still sunny at 6:30. A little bit chilly last night, but good crowd at Haymarket Park.
Yes, big one.
People love their Nebraska baseball. Down at the Cave, not as large a crowd, but a good win by Creighton last night. So it was midweek madness win for both. It is. Them getting their own stadium and getting out of there
can't happen soon
enough. I mean, those powder blues would look so much better in a ballpark where there were more people there.
Yeah.
But they play, that was an exciting game. It ended up 9-8. They beat Kansas State. Creighton
it looks
baseball.
like the Pistons in the Silverdome when they were 16 and
it's
16.
That's why they're building their own stadium. It'll be really, really nice. It'll be such a boost for Creighton baseball. I wouldn't even play the Nebraska game there. I wouldn't play in that stadium anymore. I don't know what their contract is, but I wouldn't play there. I would play in their stadium where they got an intimate setting. It just, when that ballpark, and I've said this for the longest time, that ballpark is only appealing when it's full. When it is empty, there is no character to it. And the people that were there last night got to see a good game. But there was a good crowd down at Haymarket Park. Crappy umpiring behind the plate, calling balls and strikes, but other than that,
and some crappy defense from Wichita State, but good for the Huskers to take advantage of it.
Wichita State was a little bit on the struggle bus.
Yeah, they were kicking and throwing that ball around.
But 6'7" freshman shoved last night for Nebraska.
And another freshman had 5 RBIs. I mean, it's exactly what this team needed. You need young guys stepping up, especially with McConaughey down and with some bats struggling. Like they need some guys to step up, and they're getting it. I mean, that was big yesterday.
There was news yesterday out of the Big 12 tournament, and prepare accordingly for a little bit of chaos, because the first A10 game starts at 10:30 this morning.
Nice.
It'll run all day long. Basketball today, basketball tomorrow, basketball Friday, basketball Saturday, basketball Sunday. Then we figure out our brackets Monday. Then we have basketball on Tuesday, and then basketball on Wednesday, and then we have basketball on Thursday, and then we have basketball on Friday. Then we have basketball on Saturday, and we have basketball on Sunday.
Are you complaining?
That sound like a complaint?
A little bit.
That sounds like
excitement.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm in a better mood now after that.
I'm excited. We're pumped. I'm glad we're all pumped. It sounded a little sarcastic.
Little fake pump over there.
Yeah.
Like, hey,
go sports.
Hey, little fake pump guy.
I'm not. Hey, I'm an energy guy. You know me on the golf course.
This morning is the A10 game, but there was news out of the Big 12 tournament. Bobby Hurley apparently is coming back at Arizona State.
He was 4-16 in league. They just need to give him time.
They've been
10,
4 of
years.
5 years. Last 5 years at ASU, they've been under 500. But there is a local connection here. If Bobby Hurley is coming back to Arizona State, that means that Greg McDermott is not going to Arizona State, where his name gets attached to every single year because of his home in the Phoenix area. I don't know.
Even when he's retired in 30 years, they'll try to throw his name in there. It's like, I'm done coaching.
Michael Bay on the golf course at 77 are like, hey, I think Greg McDermott might be a perfect replacement for name Arizona State coach.
Do you think Dan?
But that strikes me one quick.
Oh, go ahead.
That strikes me as Arizona State couldn't get the guy they wanted, and they're going to run it back one more year with Bobby Hurley.
I think, yeah, I mean, that makes sense. And I think, basketball and the athletic departments and also too, like we talk about the whole like Nebraska situation with the finances and whatnot. Like that also is a situation that's happening all across athletic departments where it's like, unless you're really, really sure about making a decision, are you positive that you want to go out and pay a whole brand new different guy, a whole brand new different salary along with like coaching staffs and whatnot. So, I mean, that could be a commonality potentially.
But you think that's a little tough though for like look at it from the fan base. And let's do X program.
Sure.
Okay. You are struggling. You have made the NCAA tournament for a couple of years in a place where you have enough resources to make the tournament. But then you're basically telling your fan base, hey, continue to make donations, continue to buy season tickets. But I know the product isn't very good, but we can't afford to buy them out. So you're just going to have to live with it.
Yeah,
that's a tricky sell to fans who are pretty loyal to hear that, and you're asking me to pay more for my seats, and I have to put up with this, and it's not going anywhere, and you say, well, we can't afford to buy them out. Well, that's on you for putting together a horrible deal. Fix it.
My thing,
or find somebody that can fix it for you. But I always go back to this. It's always about money, and you can find money. You can find money. That's a slap in the face of the fans that
Funny
are
how
loyal
fast
and
money
that they
comes
give you
available.
money. Yeah, exactly. It is kind of
Sure.
yeah. How when you need to go find money, you
Where'd
find
that come
money.
from?
it's maddening. It is maddening to know that you give your heart and soul to something and you root for something and you show up for something and the product is subpar and you are not being rewarded for not only your financial effort, but your emotional effort.
Mhm.
And what is standing in the way is incompetency to, like you said, find money to make things better now, and past financial incompetency that hinders you from making these future financial decisions. Unfortunately, these college fan bases and professional fan bases too know that despite the fact that they're making those decisions, that those fans are still going to show up and they're still going to come back and they're still going to fill seats. And even if they don't fill seats the next season, they know that when they do have the financial capability to make those deals, they'll come back 2 years later. And I think that's when you're going to start getting into this. And I kind of touched on it last week and we didn't fully dive into it. Like, there was a way you rooted for your college fan base. There was a way that you approached your college fan base. There was a different way that you approached your professional fan base. Now that there's money involved in college sports, whether it be, with revenue sharing, players getting paid, general managers being in the mix, those lines are now blurred. You kind of have to start setting your expectations for college programs the same way you set your expectation with professional teams. And that comes from a upper management perspective and also a player perspective. Like, we used to have this idea of, well, they're only 18 and 19 years old. They're getting paid now. Like, they're getting paid now. Like, there's a different expectation now to it. There's not as much leeway. And maybe some people might look at that and seem that it's unfair. But that's just the reality of it. When you're getting paid a lot of money to do certain things, the expectations are different. And now you're going to be seeing college programs, and you kind of mentioned this with Arizona State, treat their college fan bases similar to how pro fan bases treat their fan bases.
Don't you think colleges listen to their fan base more than a pro? Like, I can complain about the Ricketts and the Cubs and not spending money. It ain't going to change.
Yes.
So I'll give you an example. So this is basketball. Talk about a weird dynamic on Sunday. We Nebraskans love that school, that athletic department, and we support it. And our return on investment will put us into bankruptcy.
Yeah.
But we still go. We still go. We still get odd letters in the mail at the wrong time of, hey, time to donate.
Yeah.
Okay, just, the timing is always
extra money
always
on the
with
couch.
Nebraska athletics. It seems like when you have season tickets or something to any of the sports, like after a bad loss or after a bad season, and I know it's just they send it out at the same time every year. It just seems like it always drops
bad.
in your mailbox, and you're like, really?
Hey, we're not
Really?
playing Tennessee, but you need to pay up a little bit now.
But look at for example on Sunday. So Iowa, Nebraska, with a trip to go to the Big Ten tournament is on the line. And Iowa performs, Nebraska doesn't. The place is sold out. Now, you could make, who had a better year this year, Nebraska or Iowa? Well, Iowa's still playing. But the place is sold out. There's still support for the program. There's so much of Nebraska basketball to be good. But how would you like to be Fran McCaffrey? This is what stings a little bit. Iowa rolls into PBA on Sunday. And you know what the situation is with Fran?
Probably not going to return next year.
People in Iowa have voted with their derrieres because they just announced yesterday only 33.6% of the seats were full at Carver Hawkeye Arena this year.
That's not a lot.
Now,
that is embarrassing.
So this is in the way of at the end of the Steve Alford era, the end of the Todd Licklider era. Iowa fans said enough is enough. We're not going to support, and thus only 33.6% of the seats were full. It has happened at Nebraska. At the end of the Miles tenure, people weren't going to PBA. Now, it was still good crowds, but it wasn't packed.
It was happening mid Fred Hoiberg era too. Like that 10-win season in year 3, you were not getting the crowds that you are getting now. It's like it was there were some tough games in terms of how many people were there. And even halfway through the fourth year, when they went 16-16, it took them a little bit to get people back into PBA. They needed to play well. So you're absolutely right.
I mean, fans do have an impact. Look at the end of the Mike Riley era. People weren't going to the games. Now, Nebraska was going to make a move no matter what. Sure. Scott Frost was the guy. But you vote with, your butts in seats. And I don't know if you're an athletic director at Iowa, how you can look at that and go, okay, what's going to change? And I got in this discussion yesterday with somebody who is a pretty robust Iowa athletic fan, football and basketball. And we were talking about NIL because he heard our discussion yesterday about Nebraska's NIL for basketball. Now, you have to understand, there are a couple of programs in the area that their NIL is basically funded by one or two people that have 3-4 million sitting around that they fund a program.
That's all it takes sometimes.
I'm going to warn the Nebraska basketball fan. This is only going to be the only negative part of Nebraska basketball discussion today because we need to talk about Bryce Williams. Is do not watch the Big Ten tournament, today especially because Minnesota is in the Big Ten tournament. Nope. Minnesota has some NIL issues. Minnesota, with all the emotional stuff they went through this year, the ups and downs, their coach going to get fired. They're a 12 seed playing today. Iowa, with their coach, who probably they will move on from, they are playing in the Big Ten tournament today. It just reiterates how much of a collapse, one of the most epic collapses, that Nebraska basketball could not make the Big Ten tournament. So just for your own well-being, don't watch it today.
And don't watch who Minnesota's playing either, because it's not like that team's got a massive NIL collective.
Well, the Minnesota thing is Minnesota thing is keeping your program together just to get to the finish line, and they won in Lincoln. So the Minnesota one is there's a lot of layers to why is Minnesota in the tournament and Nebraska is not. We're not talking the NCAA tournament. We're talking the Big Ten tournament. But the discussion with the guy at Iowa, he said that Iowa's NIL is $1.5 million. So it is less than what Nebraska has devoted to men's basketball. And he said to me, is NIL the only problem at Nebraska? And I said, it's a major problem. It is probably one of a few problems. And he said, okay, this is what's going on at Iowa. Darren DeVries is heavily attached to the Iowa job. But there is no coach in their right mind that would take the Iowa job without a commitment to more NIL dollars. Well, that's the part of a sitting coach who is trying to overcome that, and that's a big issue at Nebraska because they swung, and then they found out that their offer wasn't as high as the next stop by that prospect that they wanted, and they couldn't get back into the game. And I keep going back to, if the puss into the Powachev, you believe in him, you'll reach deeper in your pockets. Can a sitting coach generate more NIL investment, or does it take the new person that brings in some energy?
In momentum.
That's what they're talking about in Iowa, where if I'm a head coach, I'm not taking that job without a commitment to more NIL dollars because the current guy isn't going to generate enough of a vibe to get more in there. So that's what they're going on. That's what's going on at Iowa. But just save yourself the sanity today. Do not watch the Big Ten tournament. Wait until tomorrow to watch it.
Another aspect, too, look at Dusty May, where he gets brought in and he brings Vlad Golden from FAU. And he even had some stipulations in this contract that put more money in his pocket in terms of NIL so he can go and get a guy like Danny Wolf. You look at Darren DeVries. You wonder, maybe does he bring his son Tucker along with him, who is a damn good basketball player, which is a kind of another aspect of that. And so it's like, I like the perspective of, do you trust the guy enough to give him more money, or do you bring in another guy to bring in momentum? That will be always a debate, and that's going to come down to the donors. It really is just the decision of the donors and the athletic department and what they're trying to do. Now, do I think that Troy Dannon definitely has a voice in trying to convince them in what way to swing? Can Troy be like, man, maybe this guy won't bring in so much momentum. We trust Fred. I do wonder though. Is people being in seats at PBA a double-edged sword for Fred Hoiberg?
Cub fans, it's the Wrigley Field effect.
Is it a double-edged sword? Is it like, okay, no one's coming, so we got to get rid of him, or they're not playing well, still a lot of people are coming. Imagine if we hired someone different and they were playing well. Imagine what this place would be like.
There's a lot in there because
there is.
Nebraska is a better job than people perceive it, and Fred knows that. Fred knows this is a good job, but if people had bailed on Nebraska basketball this year, then that conversation becomes more intense.
So much different.
People are still dialed in. They still care about it. Look at the first 3 days of this week that people want to talk Nebraska basketball. It's just what is limiting sustainability with Nebraska basketball? Is it the coach? Is it the money? Is it the players? Is it the tradition? Whatever it is, that's where I keep saying the athletic director earns his money when you're trying to diagnose and move forward the program, regardless of who is being the head coach. Help the current guy or get a new guy. And you're doing a disservice if you're not helping the current guy and you're keeping him. All right. John Walker will join us a little bit later. Brandon Vogel as well. There's Matt. There's Jimmy. I'm Gary on 1620 The Zone. All right, hour number 2, Gary and Matt. Glad to have you in on a hump day where KFC is bringing back potato wedges.
Let's go. You know,
Okay.
you gotta have your slant.
Why did they take him out?
I didn't know they went away.
I'm gonna be honest.
Only selected places, by the way. I don't think it's in Omaha yet.
I didn't know that they took him away, but I've always believed in having your slant, especially if you're a fast food place. You got to have something that makes you a little bit different. You got to have the wackier, unique food item. Burger King had chicken fries, okay? Those chicken fries.
How were they?
Damn good. Damn good. I've always been. Now, they were better back in the day.
Most things were.
They were better back in the day.
So were Burger Kings in this town.
You know what? Well, fast food restaurants.
No, just the restaurants.
I trust them on this one.
Whopper Juniors, though. I've had like 3 Whopper Juniors in the last month. Still a damn good.
How were the chicken? The chicken fries were good?
I like chicken fries. I've always been a fan. They're a little spicy. Like you can get hot chicken fries now, but even when you get the regular chicken fries, they always had a little bit of a bite. And like I said, they were way better back in 2012 than they are in 2025, like most things were. But they are still pretty damn good. Like McDonald's. I mean, I think just McDonald's is like they got the big McDonald's is McDonald's, but like Popeyes has fries. Like the Popeyes fries is like what makes that a little bit different. I always thought the KFC had those potato wedges, and when you dip the potato wedges in the gravy, you ever see the South Park episode where Cartman has to like he's addicted to KFC gravy and he's got to like wane back on it? I'm legitimately the same way. I could have a bowl of KFC gravy. Oh my god, no joke. Like at the end, when you don't have a lot, just sip it up. Same thing with Arby's.
I've seen worse.
Arby's sauce, I can literally open up the packet and slurp it up. I am not above.
I want to go watch Tommy Boy now.
I'm not above being disgusting like that. Okay?
Drop?
I'm not. I'm not above being disgusting. If it tastes good, I will eat it. Plain and simple.
Drop?
Promos,
I will.
Promos upon
if
promos
you
upon
if
promos.
you put enough salt in anything, I will dip my face in it. Okay?
Drop?
Doesn't
I'm
matter.
losing
Hey,
count.
I can rack up all the drops I want. Here's the thing.
No, this is a good thing. We want this.
You can keep saying, "Oh, drop." Everybody agrees with me. Everybody agrees. You're only so much salt away from having a good meal.
Some people that maybe don't need enough salt intake would disagree, but I can see where you're going here.
Once a day, I take a pill that reminds me of that.
So why did they get rid of the potato wedges? I thought that was just a staple at Kentucky Fried Chicken.
Do you think like it was too much potato? Like potatoes were costing too much, and efficiency-wise, you can get like 2 fries for every 1 potato wedge.
Are we healing as a nation?
No, maybe potato wedges, like when you have options. Like I think the tater tot may have run the potato wedge out.
Ooh. What?
Because tater tots took off, about 8-10 years ago, and the potato wedge maybe was slided to the side. Instead of going with the steak fry, you went with the tater tot, and then the potato wedge lost its place on the griddle.
I think this is the same conversation as I think it used to be Coke versus Pepsi, and now I think it's Coke versus Dr. Pepper. Like I think that Dr. Pepper has overtaken Pepsi in terms of the second drink. Like I think this is the same kind. I haven't thought about it this way, but like there is the nice tots are great. I'm going to be honest with you.
Shout out tater tots.
I prefer tater tots to fries. If you ask me, but are you okay there?
The chair here slipped.
If you ask
now
me,
matches the microphone.
Tater tots or fries, I think I regularly go tater tots. Now, I don't like tater chips. The circle ones. That's just like elementary school item. I think I'm eating Dino Nuggets. I don't want anything to do with it. I want a tot. Like I want a nice crispy tot. Now, there is no worse feeling.
Drop.
There is no worse feeling.
You're making my job easy.
Than when you have a tater tot and it's not fully cooked, like it's still a little bit frozen, like it's cold. Like that's got to be one of the worst.
Same thing about
chicken bites into it. There's nothing more degrading than when you cut into a piece of chicken and it's still pink.
Don't eat it.
I feel like less of a human when I do that.
That's a good tip there. Do not eat it then.
Is that what the CDC says?
Unless you want to lose some weight in a hurry.
CDC says don't eat pink chicken. Is that a hot take?
I think that's a smart take. So I looked this up because I don't like Pepsi, and I've really cut back on
Coke,
Diet Coke,
which is tough during the season.
You know what? Hey,
I don't know how you do it.
Well, now Omaha is a Coke school.
Yeah. Oh, so it's tempting.
Oh yeah. You told me about that and how like you would tell all the
they're in the
tournament. Hey, go and take the Coke. You need to get out of here.
So Dr. Pepsi in 1995, the market share was 15%. In 2020, it was 8.7%. Dr. Pepper has risen to 8%. Sprite is still going strong at 7.8%.
I feel like that's fallen off.
Sprite?
Yeah.
So Sprite in 95 was 5.1. They've actually gained. Sprite to me is something like 7-Up you drink when you're sick, or you put in alcohol.
Yeah.
Well, I don't drink just a regular Sprite.
They're consistent. They come off the bench. They get you a few points.
Sprite is more of a little kid drink, though, because it doesn't have caffeine in it. It's one of the rare sodas that don't have caffeine. And so I found myself when I was a kid drinking Sprite a lot because I can get that sody poppy flavor, but I can go to bed at night.
Mm-hmm.
Now that I'm an adult, I need caffeine to function.
The Coke.
So I feel like some players on the Nebraska basketball team, Sprite's like empty calories. You know, it just doesn't give me the boost.
Bryce Williams is Coke.
Bryce Williams is Coke.
By the way, watching that Cal Virginia Tech game last night, that was cocaine for my eyes. Oh. Thank you.
Lit you up a little bit? Got you going? Running around.
That was some bad basketball in Charlotte last night.
Running around the family room?
Chris writes into the Equitable Bank inbox where they take banking personally. Gary at 1620thezone.com. Your rants about an inferior product and just expecting the fans to just suck it up have literally been every Nebraska men's program for the last 20 years. Zach writes in, everything you just said about investment buyout applies 100% to the Nebraska basketball program. All right. Well,
is Zach making his way up to a 2 seed with how he's communicating to us?
Zach?
Yeah.
Zach should be a 1 seed.
You think Zach should be a 1 seed? I mean, he's running up the score recently. I think he's been our number one emailer.
Like every time you say Rink Mass, I think of Zach. So to me, that's a 1 seed when you associate people with people.
Hey, one thing we have to do. So yesterday, I thought when we were talking about the all Big Ten teams, which is wild, Tom Izzo is the coach of the year, and rightfully so. They went 17-3 and didn't have a guy on the first or second team.
That is absolutely disgusting. But that's how that team is built. That team is built to have any one of those guys on any given day to go off and win a game.
You had the defensive player of the year in the leagues on one of the 3 teams that did not make the Big Ten tournament. You had one of the rare times in the history of the Big Ten. You have a first-team guy that his team is not even playing in the Big Ten tournament.
Yeah.
But I thought because of Nebraska's fade at the end, somebody would be a knucklehead and they would not put Bryce Williams on their first-team ballot, and so he would slide to the second. That's a hell of an accomplishment to become not only first team, but coaches and media, both you were first team. It's a great way for Bryce Williams to finish his career. Now, it's more of an individual award, and I'm glad that he got it, and it is deserved. But there was a discussion that I know started, and we do this in sports. Like every time somebody has a good year, we talk about their legacy. We talk about how great they should be. Should they retire their jersey? No. The answer is no with Bryce Williams. Bryce Williams should not have his jersey retired. He is not on the Mount Rushmore of Nebraska basketball players. He is in the hall of very, very good. Wish he would have been here his entire career, but when he was here, Bryce Williams was a baller, and it's pretty damn cool that he was named first team, all Big Ten, media, and coaches. It's kind of interesting. Like if you look at, him, what was it? Palmer and Pettaway are the 2 others that since Nebraska's been in the Big Ten, they've been first team.
Yes.
Terran Pettaway's career should age a little bit better at Nebraska. He led the Big Ten 1 year in scoring, and then he was named to the first team Big Ten. Now, James Palmer could go get buckets, but if I needed a bucket getter, I would go more Bryce Williams than James Palmer. So we don't need to – we fell in love with Bryce because Bryce is a good guy, and he's also a really good player, but we're not putting him on the Mount Rushmore of Nebraska basketball. Dave Hoppen has not taken his face off the wall. Vincent Hamilton, Eric Piatkowski, Strickland, Lou. Bryce had a really good career at Nebraska, but we're not going to retire his jersey. I don't even think Tominaga should have his jersey retired.
No, and I think that
we have a standard. We have to keep the standard of
it's got to be 4 years, right?
I don't know necessarily 4 years because, what if Nebraska would have made the NCAA tournament this year and gone on a run, and Bryce was,
the dude.
I think we have to keep the standards high for. We can recognize people for their accomplishments, but retiring numbers is on a whole nother level. That includes national awards that have been won. And, you sprinkle in a championship. That also goes a long way. But let's just embrace Bryce for what it was. It did not turn out the way it should have this year. But, man, when I needed a bucket, I'm going to Bryce Williams to get a bucket.
I do want to push
back.
But
it did allow me to look at, man, Terran Pettaway
It's age
Trent Petaway had a nice little career at Nebraska. Wasn't always healthy, but his 13-14 season, damn.
Well, they made the tournament.
Man balled out.
And then they did make the tournament for another 10 years after that run.
Trent Petaway effect.
Exactly. Well, that's what you talk about, though, when you talk about him progressing, right? He looks better now because of the lack of player success that this program has had and team success this program has had since he left. I do want to push back a little bit with the whole, like, standards have to be higher, because I agree that the standards do have to be higher. And for me, almost to get your jersey retired, you have to be here for 4 years. But if they were to have made the tournament this year, and they were to have won a tournament game, which, by the way, when you look at it, they weren't too entirely far away from doing that. They really weren't. They were a couple, like, bad games and bad results and bounces at the end and bad foul calls against Ohio State. Like, this team should have and was very close to making
even more because the bubble is brutal.
But if they had won,
Nebraska's still like in the next 4 out in some brackets.
If they had won a tournament game and made a run, there would have been a massive, massive coming together and, like, rallying around Bryce to get his jersey retired. Like, there would have been a decent amount of people who would have said, no. This guy was the best player on a team that accomplished something that no team had accomplished before that. He was an all first-team Big Ten guy, medias and coaches. Yes, he wasn't here long enough, but his impact for the last 2 years has been absolutely massive. And in the transfer portal era was by far the biggest impact get that Nebraska basketball had if they had accomplished those things. So you talk about we need to raise the standard a little bit for jersey retirement, or there's a high standard. Nebraska basketball hasn't accomplished enough, though, for there to be a high standard, in my opinion.
No, there is. The people that have their numbers retired are on a whole different level. I mean, Pikowski,
sure,
Tyronn Lue, Stu Lance.
But there would have
Dave
been clamoring for him to have gotten his number retired if they won a tournament game, in my opinion, because they hadn't accomplished that beforehand.
It's okay to have a clamoring.
Yeah.
But it's not okay to say, okay, let's do it. Because then you open it up to, okay, that guy was a nice guy and he played really well and he was, so Trent Petaway. Have his number retired.
Well, it would have been one of those things, too, where it's like maybe Bryce Williams, if they had accomplished those things, what did Nebraska do after he left? If they had gone another 10 years without making the tournament and made you appreciate more of what he did, maybe that turns the tide to make you think, oh, maybe you do put him up there. He shouldn't be put up there.
No,
and even if he won a tournament game, his numbers should not be retired. I'm with you on there, but I am just bringing up that aspect of the conversation where this program hasn't accomplished a lot from a postseason perspective.
When you have, so you're saying nobody should be retired if you're saying you got to win in the postseason.
There's been individual.
It makes it even more impressive to those guys that have the number retired in Nebraska.
I agree
that they've done.
I agree.
And all of them have done incredible stuff, breaking records, winning national honors, being All-Americans, winning conference honors. It makes it more of a tighter fraternity that your number is up on the wall at PBA.
Yeah. But I do think
in a program that has never won an NCAA game.
The lack of postseason success definitely can give someone in the future a boost to be a part of that very rarefied air of Nebraska basketball player conversation. Because if you do accomplish those things, people look at you and say, well, maybe he wasn't here as long as these guys were, but he did something they didn't do. That kind of fish being in the water, that big fish being in the water that you can catch as an individual player, I think definitely does exist for this program. Once again, Bryce Williams, hell of a career here at Nebraska, did incredible things in 2 years. A bright spot for what Fred Hoiberg has done with this program. Should not get his number retired. But there is that aspect of there are guys who can come in here and they can accomplish a lot and be remembered for a lot of things.
I hate the element of this discussion is because the bar is so low.
It is.
And that's what sucks. That's what sucks about Nebraska basketball is the bar is so low. It's just, I don't know if it's tongue in cheek or it's probably reality. You win a tournament game here, you're going to build a statue.
It's both, but it's both.
Which is a terrible, it's reality.
It is, yeah.
But it's just a low bar conversation that we need to stop feeding into.
Sure.
That is not turning win or bust.
I think Bryce.
How about you know what? Erase some history. Get to a second weekend. Don't say, oh my God, our whole goal is just to win a game. How about be there every year where, you know what? You're talking about, man, are they built this year to be a second weekend team? That's all I'm asking.
But that's not that
I have
high
to
bar
step
of a
back.
clear.
I have to step back, and I got to go to the reality of Nebraska basketball has done it to themselves for so long, and you have to take one step before you can take a second.
Bryce, though, I want to say this will have a massive impact on recruiting, I think, for Fred Hoiberg. I think more so than any other project or any other transfer, or any other recruit that Fred has had. And yes, more so than Bryce McGowan's getting drafted, and more so than Keisei Tominaga coming from community college and turning into the star that he is. Because Fred can look at other mid-major guys and say, look at what I did with Bryce. Look at how he developed. Look at how beloved he is by this program. And look at what he accomplished. He was not only just a coaches all Big Ten guy, he was a media and coaches, a consensus all Big Ten guy. I think that is going to do massive things for when Fred goes out and gets mid-major guys, which he should be targeting more than Power 5 upside reclamation projects.
All right. Later this morning, the Big East will announce their player of the year.
Should be Kalk. Won't be.
Ryan Kalkbrenner or R.J. Lewis from St. John's, who was the AP player of the year. There is such a demand to have St. John's UConn play Saturday night for the championship at the Garden.
It's sickening.
And the officiating, the league, let me see if Creighton messed it up.
They're going to borrow some NBA refs.
Oh, my God.
Tony Brothers going to walk in. Scott Foster.
Most important team that's going to play at the Mecca, Xavier. Xavier beats Marquette, they're in. If they don't, then you're in a little tension convention for a couple of days. That's the most important team. Not St. John's or UConn or Creighton to me. It is what does Xavier do? And then after that game's over, then we can talk.
It'll be interesting. You talk about the refs in the in the Creighton UConn or the Creighton St. whoever they have to play, to get that UConn St. John's matchup. I want to see the referees in the Xavier Marquette game because that the Big East wants Xavier to win that game so they can claim that they're a 5-bid league.
So you're saying I must listen on the radio, shouldn't I?
I mean, there is a big difference between having 4 teams come into the NCAA tournament from your league and 5 teams. There's a bit of a different level there. And then I know that the Big East wants them to win that game.
All right, we come back, we'll talk some ball. Matt Rhule talked a lot yesterday.
A ton.
So we'll dive into that as Rich Rodriguez and Steve Spurrier took shots at Nebraska yesterday.
So back.
Yeah, hey, you got a coach that gets under people's skin. Over in Iowa, in Morgantown. Spurrier, I think, is at his house in Destin.
Dabo.
Next to Brian Edwards.
Dabo took a shot at Nebraska as well. Sarkisian took a shot at Nebraska as well. All over the friggin' spring game.
Wait, when you put yourself in that national spotlight, you set yourself up to be hit.
All right, Gary and Matt with Jimmy on 1620 The Zone. Hey, I've been telling you about AEF and how you can take your game to the next level on the floor at the fastest growing youth basketball program in the Omaha area, AEF Academy. Attitude, effort, focus. They got 3 core values that are instilled in every athlete. Become impact players both on and off the court in their communities. They've got competitive teams. They've got camps. They've got valuable instruction opportunities where you can go one-on-one. Summer camps are right around the corner. You can go to the website right now, find out more information, age groups, and how you can get involved. They're open 1st through 8th grade, boys and girls, all skill levels. Now, space is limited. So go to the website, aefacademy.com. Find out more also about the tryouts that are coming to an end. Spring, summer teams are starting to fill up. Going to be a great spring and summer with AEF Academy. Stop by their location. Check it out. It's brand new, 99th and Portal Road in Papillion. Or better yet, check out all the information from camps to teams to everything else that is going on with AEF in the community. Go to the website today, aefacademy.com. Terry writes in to the Capital Bank inbox, the Hall of Very Good, which is a good hall. I mean, baseball, Cooperstown should have, like the community that's just outside of the upstate New York community, they should have the Hall of Very Good. That would be that would be pretty popular if you had a Hall of Fame of Very Good.
I would enjoy that for baseball because baseball actually takes pride in their Hall of Fame, and there are very high standards can make the Baseball Hall of Fame. I think they should just call the NBA Hall of Fame the Hall of Very Good because that's all they let in. Okay,
They do allow a lot of people. They
allow
into the Pro Basketball Hall of Fame.
I'm hoping not to get in myself.
Way too many people because they're all friends with each other and they all love one another and they're all
lovey-dovey. The speeches, though, Matt, the speeches are great.
I don't give a damn about the speeches. Have you seen Mitch Richmond's speech? No, you haven't.
Have you seen Nolan Richardson's speech?
Have you seen Chris Webber's
actually
speech?
The Basketball Hall of Fame.
Did you watch Tony Kukoc's speech? No, you didn't.
I saw him beat the Knicks in '94 in Game 3, but
it was one hell of a shot, wasn't it?
Saw Pippen do him dirty.
I mean,
Terry's email.
Yeah,
Eric Piatkowski scored, at the time, school record 42 leading Nebraska to the Big 8 tournament championship during Pike's senior year. 21.5 points he averaged his senior year. Bryce scores 43 in a loss. Dave Hoppin led his team to Nebraska's first dance ticket. Bryce isn't dancing. Like Joel in Risky Business, Bryce has done some solid work but isn't hall-worthy.
Nice.
Well, that is
nice.
Nice job, Terry, pulling out the Risky Business line.
We've had a couple risky business. We have you did Tommy Boy today.
Make your move.
Just get a farmhouse in an old school.
Risky business. 18 guys not available for spring football. Now Nebraska is still 25 over before they get to the coveted 105. We stopped caring about that. Good, thank you.
That was your that was your New Year's resolution.
They don't have to be there until the first game of the year. Okay, we're gonna get there, folks.
I love
just like a lot of things in this country. We're going to get there.
It's
going to be rocky, but we're going to get there.
When you talk about the 105, you can just see the deep breath like that you have to take. You're just so sick and tired of it that it's incredible.
I can't wait for the 105.
I just see you throw up in your mouth when you have to start thinking about saying the number 105. Yuck.
I don't do that.
Oh, I do. I have acid reflux. I mean, that's a common occurrence. I have tooth decay because of that.
A dark turn.
Well, good luck out there.
Thank you. Yeah, it's a tough life.
105 is the best thing that's happened to Matt Rhule at Nebraska. We'll get there. So there are 25 over that they don't have 18 that are going through spring ball. If you had to pick a winner yesterday in the long, sometimes winded conversation from the head coach, but then he would drop a nugget in and you would go,
This is why you're here.
Also, I think it was pretty important to have three guys that just got here to come up and speak as winter conditioning has come to an end. If you had to pick a winner yesterday out of the whole discussion, it could be about an aspect of the program, an individual. Who would you pick as who had the best day from what Matt Rhule said?
The quote or the title, Year 3 Matt Rhule had the best day, or the idea of Year 3 Matt Rhule had the best day. What stood out to me is someone asked a question, and it was a novelty question. It wasn't like the best question, but it got the best answer.
Who was the reporter? If you're scrutinizing them,
I don't remember.
Call them out. Let's go.
Are they in the bracket?
I think it was.
Can we vote against them?
I think it was Mullen. I think it was Luke Mullen.
He
He asked.
seems like
you didn't like his question.
Though.
No, well, he asked, "Are you going to do the spring league again this year? Are you going to do? You're going to separate things into teams, and are you going to have?
No, we're going to play football.
So
none of this ass grabbing. We're out there to play football. That's what we're here to do. Not make TikToks. We don't want to be all TikTok. We want to be all American.
We want to be an offensive line team and a fullback.
No bug eaters against the smoke throwers.
We want 3 yards on a cloud of dust.
It's Nebraska against Nebraska. Next question.
Stop with the trick plays, Bert. Run the damn ball. Matt Rhule goes, no, we're not going to have a spring league. And it was kind of dismissive about it. But then he went into the last year, we did the spring league because we needed competition. We needed to find out who we are. This year, we're focusing on execution. I think if you read into that, it's a good thing for Year 3 Matt Rhule, because you move from being a developmental program to we just need to go out and practice and hit and compete because we don't know what we have, and we just need to make football players too. Okay, we have football players. Now we got to work on executing. Now we got to work on making sure that we're calling the right plays, making sure we're executing the right plays. We just have to go out and play football. And so from that perspective, the fact that the mentality has changed from no, we need to go and hit and develop and look at guys too. No, we just got to worry about who our first team is and going out and executing that. I think that is a big win, at least in the fans' eyes, for year 3 Matt Rhule, because that is
we drop that
progress. But that exists. I know you want to drop it, but that is why he was hired. He was hired because of that. He was hired
because in year 3 you're going to break through.
He was hired because he builds programs this way, and it ends up in year 3 having that big jump.
Man,
that's why he was hired.
That's why I don't want to. I know it just coincides with year 3, and you have a roster, and now it's your program, and the focus is on winning. They've eliminated a lot of things, so kind of along the lines of what you're describing and what he was talking about yesterday of not doing the teams in the spring, is it's all about winning.
It is.
But
now
I do. Temple and Baylor are not created equal.
No.
So
they're not.
To sit here and go, they're going to get to 10 or 11 just because that's what Matt Rhule does. I think you got to be cautious about that.
I do.
I think the football will be more consistent, which is another step in this program. The roster and the consistent, all of the things that were said yesterday. And I love every time they talk about being faster. I've never once in 2 years worried about Nebraska being weak. Okay. My biggest thing is mentally. Is the program ready mentally for the challenges to come when more people are talking about them and they experience success and they add to that success?
But it's also speed.
You can build, and you know what? Okay, hey, we're excited, we're building. It's all about sustaining.
But
once you get that build done,
doesn't the mental aspect play into the consistency, right? And those two things.
That's
coincide.
why I say I got to see the mental part, because where has been the consistency?
Well, and that's another step in terms of tracking back to the execution part of this spring, working more on execution. When you work more on execution, you become more consistent. And when you become more consistent, I think he's talked about slaying the lion and everything like that. I think there's a little bit of both. I think you're referring to your mentality playing into consistency, but I also do think there's a consistency that improves the mentality. If you are just unconsciously consistent, your mentality is going to change with that as well. That, hey, this is the standard. This is how we play. This is how we win. And so when I love the word consistency from the point of view of, if you play the way you did against Illinois, you beat USC, you beat UCLA, you beat Iowa, in my opinion. Because, and where does that turn into? That goes from you being a 6-win team to a 9-win team.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you kind of add all these pieces together, execution into consistency, into mentality, into winning more games you should win, what do you get at the end of that discussion? You get a 9-win
gold
football,
at the end of the rainbow.
Well, you get a 9-win football team that has improved drastically, which you could characterize as the year 3 jump. Now, you are spot on in the regard that Temple and Baylor, the idea that what he did there is exactly what's going to happen here is a fallacy, just because they don't care nearly as much about football in those places, and the lights are not on them, and the pressure is not piled as high there as it is here. So,
and the landscape is much different.
Much different. And the competition is much higher. I mean, it is the Big Ten. Not, the ceiling is kind of still the ceiling, and it has gone up because of Oregon. The floor has risen a little bit in the Big Ten as well, with the ability for some of these teams to go out and get mid-major guys and kind of recycle, right? Indiana's going to be good this year. Illinois is going to be good this year. But I think all those things kind of, like, I know you don't like the whole year 3 discussion, but I do think with how he's built this program, it is still incredibly prevalent to where they are going.
What
and
if they would have
popped?
See, that's why there's another part of this I don't like. Like, what if they would have popped and they would have won, and there was opportunities to win 8 or 9?
Yeah.
Do we say, oh my God, they're going to take a huge jump in year 3? Or we just said, oh man, they're ahead of schedule. It happens to be year number 3. You hired him because he's a builder and he was the right guy for what Nebraska needed at the time. Their roster is much better. They're a better football program. Jimmy Earmuffs and everybody else that don't want to hear this. They're a better football program than when they left New York City. Okay?
Without doubt.
They have more teachers on their staff that will be allowed to teach. I think the friction that was going on the defensive side, I almost get the impression it was a mutual parting of ways between Tony White and Matt Rhule. Hey, thanks for the memes. Have fun in Tallahassee. We got our guy. They're better. They are better today in aspects that have nothing to do with the scoreboard coming on than they were when they left New York City. So part of this, and instead of grabbing the low-hanging fruit when I say, hey, who was the big winner yesterday? I'm going to give you an off-the-radar guy that I think adds to they're better in different ways. I think the guy that won yesterday in the discussion from the head coach wasn't a player, wasn't an element of his program. It was actually a position coach. You know who I'm talking about?
Eckler?
DeKale Shorts.
Really? Why?
He has made a huge impression at Kentucky on a couple of wide receivers that they would follow, and then a guy who also worked with him at Kentucky, who is working with him at wide receiver in a position where they're deep and they're more talented and they're going to be better coached. And you have a guy in Dana Holgerson that said, I trust a 30-year-old to come in here and be the wide receiver coach at the University of Nebraska on a position in which we have loaded up on the recruiting trail and the portal. DeKale Shorts, to me, is the guy that was the biggest winner yesterday, and he's a guy that is going places, a young position coach that I'm sure 10 years down the road, we're going to be talking about bigger things. I don't think he'll be here. I think he'll have an opportunity to move up, but just hearing Dane Key talk about him, and you already know the discussion around the new wide receiver coach. He's the guy, in my opinion, that was the winner because of the impression that he has made, and I can't wait to see him with the amount of talent that he has to work with, what they can do for the quarterback's working with wide receiver, and they're more hand in hand. The other impression I got yesterday that I think is a winner is we talk about alignment, and we've always talked about alignment from the top of the athletic or the top of the university through the athletic department. I think they have better alignment on a coaching staff where not necessarily everybody is connected in the past. I think the alignment is a lot better. Hires make sense. That's going to go a long way.
1,000,000%. And the hires are based not necessarily fully on connections, which I'm not saying that hiring based on connections is a negative thing, but they were more so based on merit. I think the funny quote was, everybody told me to hire Eckler, and because everybody told me to hire Eckler, I didn't want to hire Eckler, and then he got to know him and talk to him and whatnot. And I think that, for me, I know where you're coming from DeKeel, and it was kind of startling where Coach Rhule talked about, DeKeel said he wanted this guy. So we went and we got this guy, and we went and we got him. The fact that your wide receivers coach, who hasn't been here for 2 minutes, can just go and say, hey, we need that dude. And the coach is not only going to go and recruit him, but then pay money to get him. You're right. That speaks volumes. I think, though, Eckler, though, was the clear winner in terms of, you're talking coaches, just because, and maybe a little bit more than just DeKeel, because I think the fact that Rhule sold or put him over in his teaching and his just ability to get guys, galvanize guys to go and play special teams. The fact that this guy isn't just a dude who has a ton of energy, who's saying, don't be good, be great. He's actually teaching guys how to play, and he's actually a great damn coach. I think that went very far from Mike Eckler. And I think that you can have we've had these conversations before that Mike Eckler, in some people's eyes, shifts wins. I don't know if your wide receivers coach or too many wide receivers coach across the country shifts you going from a win to a loss. I think Eckler and the special teams unit absolutely does that for Nebraska. And so I think he talked about Mike Eckler for 4 or 5 minutes. And so I think, though, the fact that, and just the winner overall is just the hiring process, right? The fact that you got guys that he likes that are making impacts already, massive. It's
kind of interesting. I don't know where Rhule was going when he talked about the celebrity coach.
I thought it was, I don't know. It was, he took some shots at media, and he took a shot at fans at one point during the presser.
That's why I thought it was kind of interesting.
It was a weird comment.
I was okay with him admitting publicly how he was looking at Eckler initially. And I don't know if that was to build himself up or just to say, I don't hire people because you want them, because I think there was a little bit of an Ed Foley in there when he was talking about Eckler and the popularity of a coach that everybody wants.
That's a great aspect from that. And maybe there is a little bit of but he had to come out and say, I didn't want Garrett McGuire fired. He still likes his guys.
It says the comfortability that you would admit something like that publicly is that you were lenient to hire a guy that everybody was advocating for.
Well, it's funny, too, when you talk about the Tennessee game and go, I love the fans, but the team is first and the program is first. And I necessarily don't disagree with it. But when you're talking about you can't have your cake and eat it, too, right, especially to a fan base that has been so loyal to your program, that we talk about Nebraska basketball. Nebraska football is on the same boat in terms of showing up every week and having ROI, right? When you go on the podium and you say, hey, don't be complaining to me about this and then complain to me about that. I don't know. You just get into the convo of maybe those are things you don't necessarily have to say.
I think
and I don't think
we're
you
going to get to the
necessarily
point.
had to say that.
Like there's national Matt Rhule and there's local Matt Rhule. Like the national Matt Rhule, say the whole scheduling stuff for elsewhere. Okay.
Oh,
we need to talk ball around here.
I wanted, and this was my number one sentiment yesterday. I wanted to talk about the team yesterday, right? I don't give a damn anymore about the transfer portal schedule or the non-con schedule or the college football playoff schedule or the fact that the national championship is being played too late. I don't care. I don't give a rat's butt. All right. Just like talk about the team, talk about the guys who are playing well. Hey, he brought up Bryce Turner yesterday. It was one of 3 players that he brought up. He's a 10-2 track guy out of Texas who barely played football, who they're going to develop. He's now over 200 pounds. I like the fact that I'm now thinking about Bryce Turner. Is Bryce Turner going to end up being a superstar at Nebraska? Probably not. But like the fact that we're now thinking about that and that's something that's on the radar and we can keep track of and we know about our guys, I'm a fan of. I don't give a damn anymore about national college football.
No, there is, whether you like it or not, you have to accept that there is more optimism than there is pessimism going into year 3. You can't deny that.
They're a deeper team, but they've lost some of their best players. And that concerns me. And he talked about that yesterday with Ty.
Yeah. Well, defenses, there are some new faces in key spots on defense. There's guys that have to make jumps, but this team will only go as far as the returning guys make jumps, and that guy's wearing number 15.
And it'll only go as far as I'm very interested with this defensive coaching staff and how they're going to come together. It very much seems like it is a 3-person at the top type of deal. Like I know that they've said that John Butler is the DC and everybody works for Butler, but if Matt Rhule walks into the room and he wants something done on the defensive end, something's going to get done. And if Phil Snow has a suggestion that, people like, that's going to get done as well. It's going to be interesting to see how all those things meld together outside of just can the players play.
All right. Gary and Matt, we're back with more after this. John Walker coming up at the top of the hour on Creighton's next couple of weeks. Can they get to a 7? Are they stuck as an 8 or a 9? And can they get to Saturday night and for the first time ever at the Mecca, cut down the nets? They get Georgetown or DePaul coming up tomorrow night on FS1 at 6 o'clock. Those 2 teams play tonight in a trio of games at the Big East tournament. That's all ahead. Brandon Vogel as well on 1620 The Zone.
Underdog is one of the leading sports apps, and you can play now in your state, which is our state right here in Nebraska. They've got all your favorite leagues, teams, and stars to choose from, and you can create entries with all basketball picks, or you can mix and match across the other sports. College sports, you get the idea. You can play with as little as $1. Very nice people like me. And if you get everything right, you can win up to 1,000 times your money, so you can turn $1 into $1,000, which is more, just by sharing your hoops knowledge. This week on Underdog, well, you heard them talking about it. It's all about conference tournament season because there's so much basketball to watch, which means there's so much basketball to make money on. Download the Underdog app and sign up now using promo code ZOE to unlock a special offer of up to $1,000 in bonus cash when you make your first deposit. Join in on all the fun when you sign up with promo code ZONE. Claim your special offer today and get up to $1,000 in bonus cash instantly upon first deposit. Must be 19 plus in Nebraska and present in a state where Underdog Fantasy operates. Terms apply. Void in Colorado. Concerned with your play? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit ncpgambling.org. So we ran this contest last year. Listeners loved it, so it's back again. Time for the college basketball championship and the, sweet insert number that comes after 15. Anyway, registration runs through the 23rd. March 26th, they'll select 16 listeners to be paired with 16 teams. You remember how that goes. April 7th, the champion will be crowned. April 8th, we'll complain about it. The winner who is paired with the overall champion will win $1,620. Second place receives $500. Third and fourth places receive $100. The rest of you receive nothing. It's really that simple. Head to 1620thezone.com/censored1620 right now. Enter to be part of that contest. Good luck to all.
Yeah, like Dane Key. Be that guy or gal to win the 1620 The Zone contest. Last year it got heated.
Isn't that a great quote from Dana? I mean, that's how you... And by the way, the fact that Dane, that was the line that got him to get here, makes me like him even more. You know, because there'd be some guys who'd be like, "Well, okay, I'll go back and be comfortable." No. The fact that put him over the edge, like, "Oh, okay, fine, I will come here. I will prove to you a guy that I don't really know."
Yeah, he's a guy that I don't worry about. Like I have no worries that he will be a fine addition. Because he's on a list of 3 portal guys that Nebraska can't afford to fan on. But I don't have any doubts that Dane Key will show up, do work, help Nebraska. Nebraska will help him, and we'll be talking about him this time next year as a former Nebraska player when it comes to the NFL draft.
3 portal guys Nebraska can't afford to fan on. I agree with Dane Key because he's going to be your number 1 wide receiver. I would say, at least for me, the other 2 are Pritchett and Winery. Who were the other 2 you were thinking of?
Well, Key I don't put into that because I know that he will be a dude. Winery is the guy. We've been so desperate around here on defense to find the next Levante David.
Yeah.
How about this? Not just on defense, but to find somebody that single-handedly changes a game. Like Dane Key could have the ability to change a football game on their own. And over the last 10 years, those have been few and far between. I mean, from Amir to Sue to David.
Yeah.
Even a Randy Gregory. So we've been looking for that linebacker that reminds us of a Levante David. We've been looking for that rush end that reminds us of Randy Gregory. And if Winery is possibly going to get up to 270 at his size, he's now in the Randy Gregory type size.
Sure.
Can he make that impact? He's a guy that can't come to Nebraska at a Mizzou where he's probably a little bit more comfortable and be a bust. You fan on him.
The lack of superstars is what you talk about. That has been the commonality between these last couple of years of this team not being able to be good. Just be a good football team. They don't have your first team all Big Ten guy. They don't have the preseason All-American. They don't have the first round pick. They don't have the absolute game record. They've had good stories. They've had walk-ons and guys who are local who've become, developed into really solid dudes who may go on to be special teamers. They haven't had a superstar. And that guy, and I think Pritchett too, a former 5-star,
he's on my list.
Like they both have all the tools to be those guys, which is why they were so highly recruited. They got, when you're talking about player development, and you've said it before, it's not just about developing guys. It's about developing your top guys, your best guys, hitting on the best talent you have.
And then the other one would be McCullough, who spoke yesterday. When he talked about playing closer to the line of scrimmages and his eyes lit up, and he's only here for a year, like a couple of usually portal guys, they pop in year 2. That's why Nebraska needs guys that pop in their only year here and make an impact.
You talk about Rocco catering to Nebraska fans, saying we need to be an O-line driven program. Talk about catering to defensive fans when you say I want to plug the run. I can't wait to
He's going
play
to be bigger. He's going to be bigger than he was at Oklahoma, and I liked him at Oklahoma. Like I've gone back and watched tape. Him playing closer to the line of scrimmage is going to be new, but I think he's not afraid to stick his head in there. And he's good playing in space tackler. But those are the guys that I would say that Nebraska just can't afford to miss on. Because when Nebraska has missed, they've missed on key guys.
Yes.
They missed on Jeff Sims. They missed on their wide receivers at the beginning of the year. Well, really throughout the year. Banks saved himself at the end. Naor was Naor.
No.
But what they needed out of them to block on the perimeter was never there, or to get separation. So they fanned on a quarterback year 1. They fanned on wide receivers what they exactly needed them to do for this offense to operate. Where will they fan in year 3? And if they do fan, because they will, is it a lower down position where there are enough guys that were already on campus that they can overcome that? And it's not a key position that just derails everything you have going.
I think they can afford to fan maybe in wide receiver, not only from just what they've done in the portal, but in high school as well. Like they've gotten talented dudes. You can't afford to fan on the O-line. I think with the amount of D linemen they brought in, they probably can afford to fan. But isn't that the benefit too? This is all comes into the conversation of like mixing your high school with your transfer portal class. You can afford to fan on more guys in the transfer portal if you're properly recruiting out of high school.
I wouldn't say more. I think as you're only at 105,
past,
at 105, you don't get afforded the luxury of fanning on 30 guys out of multiple recruiting
But when you don't have depth, you cannot fan on your top 5 guys in the portal or 5 guys in the portal in general. When you have general depth, when you have enough dudes where it's like, all right, well, if this guy who we brought in to plug and play doesn't play well, we know that this guy's developing, can come in and take that spot.
Well,
in that regard, you can.
Fortunately, they weren't doing it for depth this year. Their portal was more supplemental, which is a good step.
Yeah.
Instead of every year it's got to be depth, it's more supplemental. You plug a hole here or there.
Oh, sure.
With a starter.
And you take shots at it as well.
Yeah. All right, John Walker will join us next on 1620 The Zone. More to think about as we welcome back in. I was wrong because the clocks have sprung forward, sprung back, whatever. John Walker is on at 9. Has he always been on at 9?
Well,
did he start at
first
8?
day was
His
8.
first day was 8 o'clock, and then we have done 8 o'clock once before in terms of flexibility of other people because John Walker is the best and will do a lot for us, and so we respect him for that. But he's a 9 o'clocker or 9 a.m. guest,
but he's consistent.
He's coming up in an hour.
He's got a big game coming up too himself.
The Sweet 16 round of the best sports talk radio guest bracket. Jacob Bigelow defeats Mitch Sherman.
We did it, man.
54-46. 1,382 votes. A 5 seed beats a number 1 seed.
Including Tim Miles.
Tim Miles of San Jose State.
So Biggs had
a basketball coach in San Jose, California.
Noah Fant, I noticed, voted and then tweeted.
So
this has been an unbelievable grassroots campaign run by Jacob Bigelow to try and run Mitch Sherman out of the Nebraska media base.
What? He did it. What do you mean effort? He did it. He accomplished it. He got it done.
He done gone beat that ass.
He put in.
I like both guys, by the way, for
me too.
all intents and purposes.
Me too. Me as well. I like Mitch. Mitch is a very good writer, and Mitch is a very nice guy. But Bigelow wanted it. Bigelow. This is one of those.
But
things
we're all closer to Jacob. Let's call it what it is.
Well, yeah. But if you, it's one of those things where if you want it, you can go and get it. And Bigelow wanted it. And by the way, I do want to say Mitch did retweet it. Mitch did put it out. And
even Mitch is rooting for him.
For his athletic. Even Mitch said, vote for Biggs. Bigelow
These
wanted
are
it.
nice
Now,
people
I'm
here.
going to tell you something right now. There's going to be a major letdown game coming up against Washington. Okay, I would not.
Is that who Jacob takes on next?
He's going to take on Robin.
Who will now?
Robin or BC? I think. Let me check. I think it's Robin or BC.
I mean, we got the mayoral election coming up here in about 3 weeks. Somebody should hire Jacob. Jacob knows how to get the vote out. He was grinding all day yesterday.
Oh yeah.
I don't know if he got anything else done, but I hope he slept well because he's waking up this morning. That he is victorious in a 5-1 game.
He's already up. He's already been texting me this morning.
This is like the first season of House of Cards.
He texted me yesterday. He goes, God, I had so much fun today. The kid did it. I think he's going to play. So he beat Mitch 54 and 0.1% to 45 and 0.9%. Let me look up here. I believe Robin Washit pulled off the victory against Mr. Brian Christopherson.
That's a good matchup.
So
that's a really good matchup.
That's a 7-gamer.
54.9 to 45.1. Wash gets Christopherson. So it'll be Washit versus Bigelow. I don't know.
Jacob's got to call in the big guns.
I don't know.
do internet.
Jacob was going to be able to.
The on-3 Army against Jacob Bigelow's blue-collar grassroots from border to border, east to west, north to south. That's what the matchup is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's going to be the states of Colorado, Iowa, and California taking on the just entire state of Nebraska.
We need T.O., we need Frank, we need all the great Huskers to just rally behind Jacob.
It is like that scene from, I think it's Lord of the Rings, where the guy's standing right there, like he's got one sword and the entire army is coming at him. That's what it's going to be for Jacob.
Well, Jacob, will he put as much effort into beating Robin as he did beating Mitch?
My question is, do you get the repeat tweets from Miles and Fant? Do you get the extra support?
Well, that's what I'm saying.
There?
If he does, then that means that he has already eliminated one enemy. He's after his second.
Yeah.
I think Bigelow
he should
has
partner up with John Nicely. It's his last day today.
He's got to go through his
Well, we want Jacob to keep doing well. We don't want him to have his last day.
No. I'm saying now John's going to have more time so he can really get behind Jake. Jacob needs to assemble a power team here because that's a tough matchup.
Most of the people who watch Channel 6 do not have Twitter.
What a shot at the demographic. I think that Bigelow needs to go through.
Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong.
They do appeal to an older audience.
They do.
A very loyal older audience.
Could they mail in their tweet and somebody could do it for them?
Sherman is like, whoa. We got tweets. We got votes to count here on this Twitter poll, Severe. You can't call it yet. I think he's going through his contacts this morning, trying to see what other celebrities or football players that he may have he needs to contact.
I got Self's number. I could send that to Jacob.
Oh my God!
Hey,
no,
Bigelow.
They got to worry about UCF today. I would not. I would leave
I
him
think
alone.
You know what, and I think Bigelow will be desperate enough to do it. Yeah. But I think a current coach that is going to the NCAA tournament that could be coaching in the Big Ten next year potentially very well could just send out. I don't know if he'll do a quote tweet, but I think he'd do a retweet.
Who? What coach? You said a local coach that could be
not a
coaching
local,
in the Big Ten?
not a local, a coach that could be in the NCAA, that will be in the NCAA tournament, that could be coaching in the Big Ten.
Could be
next
one
year.
of 68.
Currently not. He's got some connections there if he wants to reach out for it. I don't know if he'll do it though. It's Ben McCollum. Bigelow's got ways to get there to Ben McCollum if he wants Ben McCollum. I don't know if he thought of that, or maybe I'm just putting that idea into the atmosphere for him, but he needs some big guns.
Huggins is trying to rehab his image. Maybe he could link up with Jacob. The Cincinnati
Jacob
message
Bigelow
boards
and
want him
Bob
back.
Huggins in the same sentence. This is glorious.
Is that not America?
Well, that is. I mean, I think he could pull that off. Yeah. Jacob Bigelow and Bob Huggins walk into a bar. It's a start to a very good joke.
And a very good night.
I don't know if it's anything like the night I had with Bigelow. I think he's driving Huggins to about 6 different bars in about an hour and a half.
5 years ago this morning,
Okay.
he was the first person I saw getting off the elevator who looked like how I felt as we were about to meet to find out that the season was over.
One of my favorite Bob Huggins stories. I'm at Nebraska's playing Cincinnati in Puerto Rico. There's nobody in the gym. Scott Howard was an assistant on the Nebraska staff, and his dad is sitting up in the stands, and he's just giving it to Huggins. And I bet there's probably 25 people in the building, so you can hear everything. Huggins turns around, and he goes, "Shut the F up," like in the middle of the game. And Scott Howard's dad is like, he goes, "I'm going to come down there." And so Huggins goes, "I'll see you," as the game's going on.
Huggins isn't a small guy either, so
That's awesome.
Oh, it was fantastic. And you could hear it on the radio.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, hell yeah. The hot mics.
Yeah.
No John Boy breakdown for that one.
But speaking of something you mentioned, it is John Nicely's final newscast. So a legend over 50 years in the TV business in this town. Tonight's his last night on WWT. So I saw they did a really nice tribute to him that they shared online. I mean, he's got from Channel 7 to Channel 6, he's got this long list of things he's done. By the way, former sports guy. Nicely done.
Yeah.
I wonder if he'll cry tonight. He'll get a little emotional.
How could you not?
His family will be there. He'll be back on the golf course here shortly. It coincides with the weather is warming up. John loves to golf.
he ordered some great weather.
Yeah. I mean,
Job well
we
done.
don't have as many. This town, when I first moved to Nebraska and was living in Lincoln, you got the Omaha stations. Most of the people that were on the anchor desk were the same people over and over, and they'd been here forever. And then I move away for a while and come back, and a lot of them are exactly the same. I mean, it just shows you people here value.
It's a good place.
We're a little older demographic, values TV news at 5, 6, and 10, and they value the newspaper. But in terms of anchors, like Rob McCartney now is the longest running male anchor that is out there. So congratulations to John. I don't know him that well. We've been a couple of events together,
Sure.
but that's in the TV business. As you get a little bit older and people are like, you know what, maybe we need somebody younger on the desk. He has persevered and has been the face of Channel 6. You got Dave Weber. He retired recently. He'd been there forever. Now you got John Nicely.
It's that one song. It's
Mike McKnight.
It's nice to be somewhere where everybody knows your name, right? Like
For you, that's the media room at Nebraska.
Well,
for some, it's Cheers.
For some, it's just the entire city of Omaha. For John Nicely at least, being a prerequisite on everybody's TVs night in and night out doing the weather. It's nice to that's why people stick around in markets like this, because he walks into a bar and someone goes, "Hey John, how you doing?" Gets to talk to people. Someone might buy him a beer. It's nice to be, and I've talked to broadcasters about this before. It's nice to have that type of just understanding and respect from the community. So congratulations to him. Absolutely well deserved, well earned. To be anywhere for 50 years is one hell of an accomplishment.
Should be your color guy next week. Celebrity color guy.
Celebrity, yeah. Who would be your celebrity color guy if you had one guy to be a color dude for?
But still add something, so it's not just like a token.
Would you bring
away.
Eddie George into the booth for Omaha?
Eddie George?
Was Jeff not available?
I think he might have to. He'd be a little busy trying to figure out what's going on at Bowling Green.
No, because that was the joke of they brought him in for the Nebraska-Ohio State game. Like it was the damn spring game for the Buckeyes. They brought in Eddie George. Nebraska's actually
Eddie
competitive
George
playing a
has
good
mad
game. They
fever.
brought in Eddie.
How much disrespect you just gave to Omaha men's basketball that she's putting the same thing as Eddie George doing a spring game.
No, Eddie George doing a regular season game, and it turned into a spring game while Nebraska was competing against the best team in the country that won a national title. A joke went over your head. It's fine. It happens. A lot of jokes go over my head, too. Two birds of a feather. We stick together.
All right, so congratulations to anchor John Nicely at Channel 6. It's tonight, after 50 years, he signs off. He'll probably have balloons. He'll probably have a cake.
Definitely cake. Gotta have
They should
cake.
bring back all the former Channel 6ers that are still in the area. I wonder if Dave Weber will be there.
Wonder.
Mike
That'd be
McKnight,
nice.
John Chapman. Who else is the Roger Hamer? They have some guys that have been there for a long time. Long time. Like I think Mike McKnight might be the OG now of Omaha television news in terms of length. And that's a good thing. It's not a good thing if he shows up at your house.
Yes.
Why?
That's like, what's his name? Hansen.
He's the top
Chris, not
investigative.
Bobby.
Oh, really?
I don't know. No, because Mike doesn't try and find pedophiles. I think he tries to find why they aren't fixing the road in front of your house.
So the Jack Golke Oakland team last year, their center, his name was Chris Conway. He's a he was a pretty damn good player, big impact guy for that game. He went to my buddy's high school, okay? And that was my roommate. You know, my roommate, he was best friends with Chris Conway. They played basketball together. On senior night, you know, Chris, for other reasons, didn't have his parents to walk him out for senior night. So, you know, they're like, oh, Chris, who's going to walk you out or whatever? And no one was there to walk Chris out. And then all of a sudden, who comes through the door but Chris Hansen, or Scott Hansen, the To Catch a Predator guy, and just walks right through the door. Is it Chris Hansen?
Chris. Scott's our red zone friend.
Scott's our red zone friend. Chris Hansen walks through the door.
Scott would have been a flex too, though.
No one knew that the Catch a Predator, Chris Hansen, was like the uncle or whatever to this basketball player. So when he walked in to Naperville Central High School, people were like, oh no, like people were like worried. Like, is someone here to meet someone who's underage? Like, what is going on? Like, the administration freaked out a little bit, and then he walked down to the floor and he just walked out one of the players, and everybody was like, what the hell? Chris Hansen is your uncle? Like, what are we doing here? It's a good story. I didn't tell it that well, but
it was though. No, yeah, you painted a picture.
It was. So congratulations to Jacob,
which is the main takeaway here.
An 8% win.
I mean, that's a big one.
Wins are wins. You don't apologize for winning. I learned it working
and the
here.
electoral.
When we come back, we'll catch up on some emails and some tweets on this Wednesday on 1620 The Zone. Hey, Doug writes in about Severe's guest bracket winners. He said, seems like all Fred Hoiberg supporters and Nebraska basketball journalists are winning. Bad news for Nick Ball.
Wow.
That
he took that from
I
that?
don't know if is that a correlation? That is interesting to see that there are more Nebraska basketball writers winning than Nebraska football writers. You would think that maybe the football guys would have more of a following, at least just from not only just a Husker perspective, but a national perspective as well. Because there's a lot of people who give a damn about Nebraska football nationally, opposed to Nebraska basketball nationally. That's actually a good point from Doug.
You think national people are voting in this?
No, I don't.
I don't know if Tim Miles was voting.
I think that just comes down to who wants it more.
Who is this John Walker?
Who wants it more? John Walker's our next task. That's the next guy we got to get into the Sweet 16.
I just think probably people that follow Severe are more familiar with the Nebraska media, which is no slight to D. Marinas or John Walker, or of course Nick Ball, who everybody knows Nick Ball.
John Walker's made it on to the next round. I mean, he had a big win.
See,
he had a win. He had a 6-3 win.
You have to reach into your base of people that are outside of Nebraska. So we probably had some people from Oklahoma, people from Missouri that voted.
It's all about who you know.
Probably geared the system a little bit.
Apparently, Bigelow knows NFL players and current Division I college coaches, and Walker knows a bunch of journalists. That is.
Let's be honest about Bigelow. He wanted that stuff so he could screenshot it for life, and now he doesn't care about this anymore. He's like, I'm good.
He just wanted the win over Sherman.
I'm good. Because I think he's going on. He's shutting down his social media.
No, that is what he told me he's going to after the tournament.
This tournament,
when
or
Nebraska making the Big Ten tournament, or
no, after this Michael Severe tournament.
Okay.
Apparently, Michael Severe is the only thing that's keeping Jacob Bigelow on Twitter.
That makes me sad.
That's power.
There's
it's going to be a month.
There's a video that is being shared out there that I shared with you guys. Jimmy, don't tweet this out because I think I know what this is. So last night, the San Jose Sharks game, who are they playing? They might be playing the Mighty Ducks. Yes, they're playing the Mighty Ducks. So it's in San Jose. So the San Jose mascot is a mascot named Sharky. He is a shark. And he's got sweater on, breezers. He's got shoes that make it look like he's wearing skates.
It's kind of puny.
There's a video that is being widely shared this morning. I first saw it on SF Giants memes, which I'm afraid to click on to see what other tweets they have out there. So I think what happened. So the initial reaction I'm seeing from people is the guy was going to square up on the mascot. Now, if that's the case, then you're going, boy, I wonder what his blood alcohol content level is.
He doesn't look that drunk, though.
This is a fan. Wow.
But here's what I think happened. Okay, I'm not going to share this because I believe this is what has happened. Because now it's all over the internet. The mascot is in the handicap section, and this gentleman is sitting there and may have a adverse reaction to the mascot. Not that he's hammered or anything, or he wants to cause problems and wants to fight the mascot.
I got you.
I think that's what's happened here. So I want to be very careful because people are just crushing this guy. They're like, that guy is so trashed. Who squares up on a mascot? I think you got to look at where the mascot, where the section is, where the mascot is. And this young gentleman, may not understand what's going on here. So, but the first time I looked at it this morning, I was like, damn, who squares up on a mascot?
I mean, I wonder, the first reaction I have is like maybe the mascot was getting maybe the guy had a kid and the mascot was getting too playful with the kid maybe, or doing because Tommy Hawk, at Blackhawks games, literally eats people's heads. He puts his mouth around your head. Some people just don't like that straight up. So maybe that happened.
I don't like it.
I don't know. I don't feel like there's enough context here about what occurred. I'm just going to tell you something right now. I know it's Sharky, he's a staple of the NHL and San Jose Sharks. I don't like the mascot costume. I think they could do a much better job.
He doesn't look as scary or cute.
He doesn't look like
stuff.
anything. He's ugly. He looks like handsome Squidward.
Not everything can be the Flyers mascot. But you don't want a mascot to be scary. I mean, look at what it's done in Nebraska with that god-awful thing. Which, by the way,
Kirby is not that scary.
Oh, brother.
It's
that
not
thing,
that scary.
That thing, you know what? when they implode the South Stadium, they need to have Herbie sitting right in the middle of it.
They already redid
In a
Herbie.
trough.
And they did it worse.
You might be the only one
They
who
did it
liked
worse.
hot Herbie, okay? You might be the only one who liked brown-haired Herbie.
I liked Harry.
Who's Harry?
Harry Husker.
Who's Harry?
Just Google.
Okay, cool.
It's not like Val Midwest.
Are you Lil Red?
I love her, Little Red. I think Little Red is great.
You are in like the minority.
See, I always forget that. I always think you hate
usually
it,
I
and then
am.
you remind
Usually I
me.
am a minority.
No, in terms of like how you outlook like most Nebraska just program straight up face value, you're good and you bring up good points and you're right on it. When it comes to the cosmetics, you're off. You're off all over the place in terms of the cosmetics of Nebraska sports. You liked the Black History Month jerseys.
I did.
They were ugly. What
What happened when they stopped wearing them?
Oh, that's true.
I don't think the
about
jerseys
that.
was a necessarily factor.
No, there was nothing right about this season, so it was the jerseys. It wasn't the guys in the jerseys. It was the jerseys.
See, other people hate New Herbie with you. You're not
New
alone.
Herbie is fine. New Herbie is better than old Herbie.
New Herbie is atrocious, and it's right
New
up,
Herbie's an actual farmer.
right up
New
there
Herbie
with
looks
the
like
hiring
people all
of-
across the state.
It's actually a person in the mascot costume.
He's a good guy.
We need,
They usually are.
we
Good
need
dude.
to either have Herbie have sex so that we can have a new Herbie,
I'm listening.
or just have Herbie like disappear. Okay, go into the witness protection program. And then when he comes back out, looks completely different, and that face is different.
I vote for option one.
Herbie can put down beers.
You know what'd be cool is if when
It's
they
a
play that,
Nebraskan.
when they
Of
play
course.
that Killigan song, like Herbie is on the, they shoot the
He's on the
t-shirt
truck.
can,
Yeah.
like runs into the wall or something.
Like
You go-
Gus
hey,
Farrat.
Hey,
You want
know,
it? There's
you
an
know what is
actual
great?
human in the costume. You want him to get hurt just because you don't like the fact that he's got blonde hair and blue eyes?
Hey, don't be the mascot then.
It's
Go
actually
for
a great job.
go for Little Red.
Gets
I-
travel
I
everywhere.
used to be involved in the picking of the students.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
Well, you said. I mean, were you?
No, I was not a mascot.
Were you not Herbie Husker?
No, no.
You
But
were never Herbie Husker.
I've been here almost 3 years. If you would have just
but-
told me that now,
But here's I think I've told this story before, and I can't get in trouble for this. The mascot once came to one of my parties at 26th and W.
solid.
Wait, dressed in costume?
Well, it was a roommate of mine that put the costume on because we borrowed it, and so it was at a huge, just kegger in the house at 26th and W, just greeting people.
Which is really nice. That's Nebraska nice.
Well,
Yeah.
the
There used
mascot has come to my place, and we
Yeah.
have gone out. He wasn't in costume. I mean,
He was
We
in
just went out.
costume, and we had him walk across the parking lot because then there was a Mum's Liquor next to the McDonald's. Now that whole block is completely different. There's a Walgreens there, but there was a McDonald's, but Mum's Liquor was in the parking lot.
Oh yeah.
And so we had him go over and buy beer at Mum's Liquor. And because the guy that always worked at Mum's Liquor knew about our house on the corner,
They knew.
yeah, he we had a credit there.
And he just let
You
him
tell
walk in.
Gary
He just
when am I
let
getting
Herbie
paid?
Husker walk in. They'd have to show. How funny would it be if it was like, "Can I see ID?" And he pulls out like a Herbie Husker,
The big
like,
giant
it's got
ID.
like the picture of. It's like a big check.
Herb E. Husker.
Yeah. So I'm not a fan of the current one, but I am a fan
Not
of
the human, the look,
I'm a fan of Little Red. No, the humans inside are great.
Yeah.
I think it's cool to be a mascot.
They're brave too,
Great.
because
Hey,
those costumes don't smell the
when
best.
I was in pro ball, I went one time to go through mascot training with a couple of our mascots. I mean, it's intense. They also,
Oh,
if you
yeah.
are the best if you are like at the top of the food chain with professional mascots, you make a lot of money. There is a reason
Bingo
why
buck.
there is a reason why Sebastian the Ibis for Miami has basically been the same guy for
Forever.
many years. Yeah. Like the top end mascots, like Rocky of the Nuggets makes really good money.
Legend.
The Philly Fanatic makes really good money.
The
Even-
Coyote.
So TC Bear, they had a little controversy. They had to make a change when I was with the Twins. But the guy, great guy, that was inside of TC Bear, he did pretty well for himself as well. But so I
You
don't
think
know.
Gritty does well?
Yeah, because he's very popular, and so I'm
Oh,
sure
yeah.
he does a lot of appearances. But whether it's a mascot fighting a fan, which is still, again, in this case, I think there's something else.
Right.
We need more mascot on mascot crime. We haven't had a good Stanford Cal brawl in a while. Maybe we'll get that in Charlotte in the ACC basketball tournament, because of course we will. Like, we haven't had Chip and Herbie get after each other. There was it 99, or it might have been the game where they cleared out the student section
05.
at Colorado,
Should ask Jay Moore.
Chip, and Chip is pretty active as the Colorado mascot.
Yeah.
He came over and was having fun with Herbie, and then all of a sudden they started swinging on each other. And people were stunned because they thought it was an act. But I remember there were a couple of male cheerleaders for Nebraska were like, no, this is real. Because like Chip, you can be a little bit more fluid in that costume compared to the Herbie costume.
Mm-hmm.
Like Chip was punching, and he wasn't just punching like the face of the costume. He was like giving it to him in the midsection. And so like a couple of the big male cheerleaders for Nebraska had to come and break it up. And Chip was
insane.
Chip was still throwing punches. I think it was either 99, the overtime game, or it was part of the whole fiasco of where they had to clear out the student section in Boulder. But Chip and Herbie got into it where like the stadium got distracted because it was in the end zone where the students are. And they were like going at it.
It reminds me of when Jamal Adams Luthez pressed the Patriots mascot and sent him to the hospital. Like literally, like I don't know. Did the Patriots mascot sue him or like try and get money for it? Like he messed. Did you remember seeing that video at the Pro Bowl? He messed that guy up. And by the way, this is prime like 220-pound like absolute animal Pro Bowl Jamal Adams. That was the last like true mascot crime that I've ever seen. Oh,
no wonder they canceled the Pro Bowl.
I will say this though, I do hate that where they do that in Indianapolis and Minnesota, where they have the mascots play the little peewee football guys.
Yeah,
I am not a fan of like grown men literally just laying out 8-year-olds because what? Because they're wearing a costume, it makes it funnier. It makes it socially acceptable for these literally like 20 to 30-year-old dudes are hammering. Like they don't take it like, and they take it a little personally, these guys, because these little 8-year-olds like try and hit them back in the ankles.
It's like Nebraska and Pacific back in the day. That would have triggered you too.
I don't know. I think it's funny, but it's like, it bothers me. Like when you look at it from there's like the Golden Gopher, like absolutely hammering a 7-year-old kid who has to go to second grade Spanish tomorrow.
It's like watching Jamar Toombs carrying 5 OU guys again.
That's a 26-year-old man who literally just put his shoulder into a kid's head. Yeah, I'm not a fan.
Andy said, being a mascot is becoming more of a thing because there are scholarships in college now for mascots.
There's mascot school. You go to mascot clinics where they teach you how to wave and shoot the guns and go, and do the clapping and everything like that and look like you're actually happy to be there. Apparently that suit gets
the opposite of journalism school.
But you got to pay double for that type of action.
Do you think if you're good at being a mascot, you could also be good at being a professional wrestler?
Yes.
I think it would help.
That might be your greatest take.
Ever?
That's kind of sad.
That is a great take. You would be because
13 years acting. Comes down to this.
It's all about
damn Omaha men's basketball.
It's all about pantomiming. You learn how to pantomime when you're. Hulk Hogan wasn't a good wrestler
or a good man.
Absolutely, Hulk Hogan was a good pantomimer. He could express his emotions with the ear and the hand, and you brother, you absolutely could be a great. You just have to take a couple bumps here and there, as long as you're not a wuss.
Bellevue West Joey says that Herbie won't have kids. I can't read any more of that email. I guess it's scientific.
I understand where he's probably getting at.
Hey,
Clark the Cub can though.
That's another thing here. I don't do anything with mascots that don't wear pants.
Yeah,
mascots that don't wear pants freak me out. Some people get freaked out by clowns.
That's
mascots that don't have pants on, I'm out.
You're out on the coyote. I get it.
Hey, don't hug me. Don't do anything. If you're not wearing pants, no, we're out.
Winnie the Pooh, you're out.
Hey, speaking of Bellevue West, Bellevue West Millard North played today in the state basketball tournament for the 6th straight year, but not in the final. That's a hell of a run we've been on, where Bellevue West won in 20, and then Millard North got a couple, and then Bellevue West has won a couple, and now they're playing in an opening round game at 3:15 today. They start at 9? We have to watch Nebraska News Channel to watch the game.
Beautiful.
I laughed. There's a Stu Pospisil wrote a story. Robbie Garcia, who seems like he's been at Bellevue West forever, has had a really, really good year. And one of this is the changing of high school athletics. Not that it's been changed, but the fact that you have to include this in a story. One of Stu's first couple of lines was Robbie Garcia could have transferred to a contender, but he decided to stay at Bellevue West. That'll make people really, really happy. And he probably could have. I'm sure he was in demand. But good turnaround. Bellevue West at one time, they were 9-7. That'll be a very interesting game
crazy
today.
sentence.
Hey, I like the Class A bracket. I think Class A is open. Papio South is probably the favorite, which another wild stat, they haven't won in the state tournament.
They haven't won a game.
They haven't won a game, and Coach Heiser has had some really, really good teams. But they take on Papillion La Vista today, who hasn't been in the tournament in, I think, 8 years, and beat them earlier this year. That should be a really good game.
Yeah, that's the first game.
West Side Southwest play again. They just played in the district championship. And then you have the LPS on LPS, Lincoln North Star and Southeast play.
Yeah, that's the main event, 7:45, Pinnacle Bank Arena.
I like the Class A bracket. Class B plays tomorrow, and Norris has quite the challenge of the road to win a state title for the first time in, I think I was still living in Lincoln the last time Norris boys basketball won a state title. So good luck to Jimmy Moats, the head coach of Norris. But they would have to play Scott in the semifinals, and Scott's really, really good. So state tournament starts at 9 today. Make sure that you memorize your county numbers if you are in the capital city today.
Why is that?
Because you have a lot of out-of-town people.
Oh, okay.
If you have a number on your car's license plate,
give them room.
You probably avoid them.
Mm-hmm.
This was always one of my least favorite weeks.
Look both ways on one ways.
In terms of going to school in Lincoln, because I would, I lived downtown for 3 years. I lived in the heart of the Haymarket. And so this was always just hell week for me, especially the girls' state tournament too, just because the driving, the getting in and out. Because they were too young
or what?
No.
Yeah. 60? Come on.
You guys are the worst. You guys, absolutely not. It was because I had to drive places, and it sucked.
We both thought the same thing, so did the listeners.
And everything was always blocked off, and I could never get anywhere. And also, too, I was like a once-a-week Haymarket guy where I enjoyed going to Billy's or going to Brewski's or Tina's or any of those local spots to, grab a nice little dinner. And those places would be packed.
With kids?
With people that I don't know.
Go to the
care about and be loud.
Do not ever move to Florida during snowbird season. You'll be miserable.
I like a certain amount of people. So
you would be advocating for Lincoln to lose the boys and girls state basketball tournament and that it comes to Omaha.
I'm not advocating for anything like that.
They're going to follow
anyone with pitchforks and knives at my door about what my opinions are, any sort of local high school tournaments. I'm not going to lay my hammer down anywhere in terms of where things should be. All I'm saying is I like to grab a burger on Fridays, and it was really hard to do that with a lot of people wearing their school colors and a bunch of little kids running around screaming. Places are good when they're 80% full. They suck when they're at full capacity.
You think he's talking about field trip day when you take the little kids? Because I've been part of those, and that's a whole different part of screaming.
There's a bell curve of just people in general. Once we just get there's I never have fun when there's 0 people, but then there's a certain amount of people where it's like, all right, this is the perfect amount. Then we get to too many people, and I'm like, get me the hell out of here.
I think what I'm hearing is you would like the state basketball tournament.
I'm not making any statements.
Baxter Arena.
COVID rules. Friends and family.
What would be the benefit? Just a bigger place, or is it just
they already don't like. They're already upset that we've taken some of their championships and brought them to Omaha.
Yeah,
they will fight you to keep football and basketball.
Mm-hmm.
But do you think there would be, it's a bigger town, right? So you would think that with more space and more places could go and more places to eat and more places to stay would probably be.
Lincoln has places.
No, I know, but.
I don't know if they want to come to Swim Town and get out of Crime Town, we're always open for business here.
It turned into Fire Town yesterday.
I just know the NSA, the NSA doesn't want, it would have to be an incredible package from the city of Omaha to get the boys and girls state basketball tournament out of Lincoln.
Joe in the comments writes, McMaster out on Lincoln businesses making money and helping its local economy. I did not say that. That is like the Chris Tucker movie where he's running for president and they're like Chris Tucker, he didn't show up to the cancer convention and they're like, he is for cancer. It's not what I said. I
am advocating for the state basketball tournament. I think it's great at PBA and the Devaney Center. And I also think, I think that I deserve, like a mention in the program every year, that I fought tooth and nail to make sure that we're not playing in high schools. And we got an extra day. I would like it to be a week long, but I understand we're a larger state. Not everybody can afford to stay in hotels and travel. And I get all of that. But we're not in high schools. And so that's my That's my walk-off with state basketball. See a lot of you down there over the next couple of days. But A, C1, and D1 play today. Now, we do not have, as I was watching the All-Conference Awards come out yesterday around the country, it makes you appreciate. I was not living in Omaha back in the Mike McGee days and the Ron Kellogg days and the Ced Hunter days, or the next go-around in the 90s where we had Strickland and Woolridge and those guys that, Terrence Badgett. And then I was not here for the full run of the dominance by Omaha Central. But when I got here, it was kind of at the tail end of Central's run of winning state championships and just incredible teams. But any of us that have followed high school basketball, you were like going to a college basketball game when you were watching Chucky and Hunter and John, among others, play, in the last 5 to 7 years. Yesterday was a good day for them. Probably not a good day if you're trying to talk about Nebraska recruiting in-state players.
Sure.
But Chucky Hepburn and Hunter Salas were the first team all ACC. John Tanjay was first team all Big Ten, which is an incredible story on his journey to get to Wisconsin and do what he did. And it whenever an out-of-state or an in-state kid, especially an Omaha kid, goes somewhere and does well in basketball, it always comes back to, well, money, Nebraska, Hoiberg.
Sure.
I'm just going to leave it at this because this is an argument that you're never going to come to common ground on. In-state players, and I would say the top in-state player, well, there's two. Brock Scholl is from Scott. He's going to Omaha. Bryson Ball, who is Jordy Ball's brother from Papio South, who is a really, really good player, is going to go to South Dakota State. Last thing I want to see is Jaden Jackson from Bell West and Bryson Ball playing at South Dakota State. But Bryson's a really, really good player, and he's been a really good player for a long time. But there's no, in this current class, there is no of the three that I just mentioned that got honored yesterday. I just want to leave it at this. You can't force everyone to be a Husker. Love the program, love the state,
you're right.
Love to see kids that we watch play from AAU basketball all the way through high school and do great things, and we get to know them, and they went to our high school, and we love them, and we're like, oh, man, I can't wait to watch a ball out the other level. You can't force everyone to be a Husker.
Absolutely.
So there.
And there are better opportunities, for them specifically out there, and it's not necessarily just about money. These kids can look to other programs and be like, you know what, I connect to this coach better, or I connect to this program better. This program is going to help me get to where I want to get. And that's just, you can't fault them. And I never, ever liked when Chucky went to Pinnacle Bank Arena and people would boo him. I never understood it. I never partook in that. That is people have a lot of pride in being born from Nebraska and being from here and growing up here. And that's a guy who did incredible things in the state from a just prep perspective and is doing incredible things from a college perspective. Like, we should be celebrating that regardless of the fact that he didn't decide to go to the local school, because it is one hell of an accomplishment. And it's always great to see that representation. I always had a sour taste in my mouth when Wisconsin would come to town and he would just get boos, because you know what? Chucky Hepburn picked the situation that he thought was best for him. And he did it not only once, but he did it twice. And he was successful in both regards. And it's like, you have to respect that. And, we should have a lot of pride in the fact that he came from Nebraska and accomplished all these things.
You have to give him a reason. I mean, all three of those guys at some point in their high school or in their portal life, Nebraska kicked the tires on. And I think there were a couple of those guys that the interest by Nebraska was much higher than the interest by the prospect.
But I think what it comes back to always with Nebraska and trying to get these top guys anywhere is that it comes down to program tradition and proving that you can be a winner and you can elevate these players, right? The pitch of, well, you grew up here and, you grew up in the state and you're 45. That's not good enough. You have to build like an actual program to the point where it's an attractive, not just from an in-state kid perspective, from a basketball player perspective. That's the problem.
Quick break. We'll come back again. We got John Walker and Brandon Vogel in the last hour. Scott, stay right there. We'll get to you when we return on Gary and Matt, 1620 The Zone. All right, back in on a Wednesday. Here is Scott. Good morning, Scott.
Morning, gentlemen. So, all day yesterday I was listening to you guys talk about Nebraska basketball, and I have a couple opinions on that. But it seemed to me the consensus was a lot of people were, and I'm not necessarily you guys, were advocating to dump more money into the program via the NIL or budget or athletic department. And it got me to pondering a little bit of a UCLA runs their athletic department runs at a $50 million deficit.
Mm-hmm.
The UCLA women's head basketball coach doesn't even get paid by the university. She gets paid by the Michael Price Family Foundation. Her title is the Michael Price Family UCLA women's head basketball coach. And I was wondering, how is Nebraska missing the boat here? Because it's well known that Nebraska is one of probably 4 or 5 schools that completely run in the black. So how are we lacking any of this money that we all talk about when their schools? UCLA beat us in football. They have a better men's basketball team than we do. And they have probably the number 1 women's basketball team in the nation. And their athletic department runs at such a negative. And I'm just confounded. So if you guys could touch on that a little bit, I would appreciate it.
Thank you, Scott.
Do you think that as of recent history, Mick Cronin is a better college basketball coach than Fred Hoiberg? Like that, and the UCLA basketball program is like the top basketball that's the top program for that school. They invest a ton of money into it. You know, it's just one of those things where it's like when you're talking about UCLA specifically, like when they beat us in basketball, with all due respect to Nebraska basketball, they're supposed to beat us in basketball. You know, same thing with like the football game. You know, that was a bad game. And I just kind of talk about the results because that's neither here nor there. I think it's just kind of one of those like attitude and mentality things where it's like Nebraska cares really a lot about being in the black and being financially stable. And, you know, while UCLA is winning in women's basketball, men's basketball, and, you know, in football and everything like that, they have a lot of internal athletic department problems that I guarantee you the Nebraska athletic department would trade losing some of the games that they've lost as opposed to having the problems that they have financially in that athletic department. So it's just kind of what you weigh, you know, and I think that's just kind of the perspective you have to it.
Coaching matters.
Oh, big time. I mean,
by the coach matters.
That's why I bring up Mick Cronin.
So,
I mean,
well, I think the other. Okay, I'll give you a little story here real quick. Nebraska lost a player in the portal that they were pursuing that they thought they had a great shot on. That was a local kid, and William Kyle III. Okay, transferring from South Dakota State. Nebraska didn't pursue him much out of Bellevue West, and Bill was a little bit. He was raw. He blew up at South Dakota State. I mean, he's still got a high ceiling. I mean, I still don't think that he has touched where he can be.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, he's still learning the finance of playing basketball. But my God, there's so much to like there. So Nebraska pursued him heavily. I mean, Fred Hoiberg probably went after William Kyle III harder than any portal guy this past year. I mean, Fred was stopping at Stella's in Bellevue.
Yeah.
Okay, he was everywhere. I mean, like Matt Rhule stops there and they take a picture with him. Howie Hoiberg had his own booth.
I mean, it's not for lack of effort, you know, when we talk local guys.
So they thought they had him. And, you know, there were some people that were working with William Kyle III to make sure that, you know, he got taken care of. And he goes out to UCLA. Okay, and this is a Bellevue West kid. Okay. Frankie had already moved on. Chucky had already moved on. So it wasn't going to be like, hey, we're trying to, you know, put the Bellevue West trio together. You walk into Pauley Pavilion. I don't know if you've been to Pauley Pavilion. Jimmy, have you called a game at Pauley Pavilion?
I've not.
It's okay, but the museum of UCLA.
Yeah. Now that's legit.
That's pretty damn cool. Of all the incredible Olympians, I mean, Jackie Robinson all the way down. But then they walk you in and you see the trophies and you see the banners and you see the history and they've got stuff that tells you the story. And then they say, this is UCLA. this is Nebraska. This is some money. This is what you should do. So winning matters. Money matters. NIL is not the number one problem for Nebraska. It is one of problems. But something that Scott said, I think I've heard this correctly from my friends over in Ames. And Iowa State's NIL for men's basketball is pretty good, and Iowa State basketball is pretty good.
Yeah.
That it is funded, that their NIL is funded by just a couple of individuals. There's nobody that says, now there are a couple of people that would get involved at Nebraska basketball.
Sure.
But there's no like one person that supports Nebraska basketball and says, hey, every year, here's $3 million.
Like your
Go make it work.
Type.
Yeah. And so.
Let me know what you need.
It's a challenge.
You got it.
But Nebraska's NIL is higher than Iowa's. Iowa's is 1.5, I believe.
It's higher than Minnesota's.
It's
and it's
coaching
higher than,
matters.
Yeah.
Coaching matters. How you spend that money matters. Hey, it's circles back to, was this a blip? Was this just a bad spending of money where we didn't get our early guys? We had to go late, and the late guys were not what we wanted. I do know this because they're more active earlier, and they have to be, because they're going to have 9 to 10 spots that are going to be open. But I don't. The answer is getting the mesh and having them play and finding the guys that can help you win close games. And if you are able to correct those mistakes from this year, then you should be fine next year. But when you make a promise on the radio that I promise you we'll get back and we'll sustain this, if it doesn't happen, then you've put yourself up to have the consequences that come your way. And Fred, I think, is okay with doing that because he believes Fred is betting on himself. It's, will the fan base bet on Fred for another year?
It seems like, just from the temperature of this fan base, that they're going to have his support, because of what he did a year ago, the fact he was Big Ten Coach of the Year. But this is way farther. Solving the problems of Nebraska basketball is way farther than just firing a coach and bringing someone else new in. And it's way more than just, hey, we're going to try and scrape up a bunch of other donor dollars and put them in for this 1 year so they can go out and get more prospects. There's way more under the surface outside of we need a better coach or we need more money. It's things have to come together and coincide as one and be congruent.
Here is Dave. Good morning.
Good morning, conference champ. How are you?
Hey, thank you.
You're welcome.
How much money did we win you?
Yeah, just a little bit.
Nice.
Something you touched on when you said it's okay, not everybody has to go to Nebraska. We've been seeing that down here for a little bit, Gary. And if you remember, your guy Noel Devine kind of started that trend because Sammy followed. We've had a slew of guys who are D1 kids, and not a one of them stayed in the state of Florida. So I think you're starting to see that across the board. And you're right. It is okay not to stay home. It really is.
Well, and this. There's the part of, like Nebraska football has been better under Matt Rhule of identifying early in-state kids that they want and pursuing them, and their hit rate is pretty good. If they aren't making you an initial offer, you're probably not high up on their board, either due to numbers or for a multitude of reasons. But this is how this works nowadays, is you're not going to burn a bridge because you're looking for the bounce back. If that kid comes back and he says, you know what, hey, I went to Colorado State, it didn't work out, but I like the relationship I built up, and Nebraska says, hey, we're good, come on. You don't in the past though, but like when Florida State got shunned by Noel Devine, I mean, Dion worked hard to see if Noel Devine would stay in state and go to Tallahassee. And I remember I was living in Fort Myers when Bobby Bowden showed up at North Fort Myers High School, and it was a circus because they flew in and it was a big deal, and Noel Devine was going to stay and he went elsewhere. And it's just, that's the day and age. Kids have more, especially in this state of Nebraska, because the talent has gotten so much better and the exposure has gotten so much better. Kids have more options if it's not just Nebraska. And that forces Nebraska to work quicker, to be smarter in-state recruiting and not take people for granted. But again, you can't force somebody to stay in state if that's not what they want to do. They have to do what's best for them. Some embrace it and they're like, I've always wanted to be a Husker.
Yeah.
Some are like, hey man, I want to be part of this turnaround. I want to be the guy that helps get this program turned around. Others say, you know what? I just need to get away from home. Okay, it's not going to Nebraska and being a Husker. It's what if I just want to get away from mom and dad? I want to go experience a place that I've never been before instead of going to a school that's 40 minutes away.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I agree 100%. The last 2 Florida commits we had was Trey and Clay, and geez, that's been
but you know what else?
Long time since the Burtons were there.
So this was Venice, which is a dominant football program. Dave's part of the championship coaching staff. What school did they go to? Who was coaching there, and what was that school doing at the time when they got their commitment?
Well, actually, I believe Herb was gone. Muschamp was there for Clay. Trey got in a little bit.
Yeah.
He was a Weiss guy because Weiss was the one who changed him to H-back.
Yeah, but Urban
they were still riding on the they were riding on the coattails of what happened in 04 and 05.
Yes. So. All right.
So,
I appreciate it. Keep doing good work. Who are we playing in softball today?
we actually have Lehigh, the old Lehigh Lightning tonight, the home of Richard Young.
Yeah, it hadn't worked out so well at Alabama. All right. Thank you.
Hey,
yeah,
he's another one who didn't stay home.
Yeah, Saban showed up at Dad's house, and it was a done deal.
Yeah, Nick has that. He has that same appeal with Peacock.
Yeah. Oh, thanks, Dave. Running back from Lehigh, which is a suburb of Fort Myers.
Yeah.
I know his dad. I saw this kid was a little kid when I was living there. He's at Alabama right now.
Yeah,
he may well play a little bit this year.
They don't all pan out.
John Walker's coming up next on 1620 The Zone. All right, Big East tournament starts today. St. John's, UConn, everybody wants to see. Creighton could cause some issues of the 2 seed. You get Seton Hall playing today. You get DePaul and Georgetown. The winner gets Creighton. We get John Walker, the Omaha World Herald, who is at Sbarro right now, getting himself the best slice of New York pizza. Good morning.
Hello. How are you guys?
Good. How's the Big Apple?
So I'm actually not there yet.
Oh.
My flight is at noon today. So
Okay. Direct?
I'll get there in a little bit. It'll create a tricky situation because, as you guys might know, they're announcing Big East Player of the Year at 12:30. And if it's a certain someone and I'm in the air, that could be a problem.
Yeah, you know what? Just have McEwen hit send on the story you've already written.
Say, Willie Moore can do
something. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, it'll be.
Okay, so I mean, we're talking about a guy that his name will always be mentioned in the same sentence as Patrick Ewing, which is absolutely incredible and a tribute to Kalkbrenner.
Yeah,
and like the AP came out with their Player of the Year, and it was not Kalkbrenner, but I think it's essentially, and we talked about this last week, down to 2 guys. What would be the reason if it's not Ryan Kalkbrenner as the Player of the Year this year?
The interesting thing was last year, and I promise this is going to wrap around to this year. The interesting thing was last year, the argument was for Tristan Newton was, okay, well, he's the best player on the best team. And sometimes that's good enough. Sometimes it's not. Last year it wasn't because Devin Carter was just that good for Providence. And in this year, RJ Lewis has been the best player on the best team. He's hit clutch shot after clutch shot to help St. John's pull out these ugly games that they have no business winning. And to their credit, that they've won all season long. So that's kind of the argument for RJ Lewis. His offense, obviously him and Ryan Kalkbrenner, 2 different scorers, but their offensive outputs are somewhat similar. And so that's why the argument this year for me was, and I've said this for about 6 weeks now, if you have 2 guys whose offensive outputs are similar and their teams finished similarly in the standings. Now, obviously, St. John's kind of ran away with it at the end. And only one of those guys is in the Defensive Player of the Year conversation. Isn't that the better player?
Yeah.
So that was kind of the criteria I was working off of, but that would be the argument if it's not Ryan Kalkbrenner, is that RJ Lewis was the best player on what was definitively the best team in the league this year, and St. John's wouldn't have been able to pull out some of those ugly ones if it weren't for RJ Lewis.
Yeah, I mean, your argument is my argument. Ryan Kalkbrenner has averaged more points, more rebounds. Funny enough, they're very similar in assists to RJ Lewis. His field goal percentage is 66%. Lewis's field goal percentage is 44%. Oh, Lewis has 2 turnovers a game. Kalkbrenner has 3 blocks a game. Yet, one of those guys is going to end up being the Big East. The wrong guy will be the Big East Player of the Year. Outside of that, John, let's talk about the tournament. Both tournaments. Right now, Creighton is kind of weirdly sitting in some brackets on that 9 line. That 20-point Xavier loss just really did not help them out, especially with the margin of victories and how much they go into being in the net ranking. And, they're kind of on the 8-9 line. I got a question for you here. Is it kind of the full, and I know you get this a lot, in terms of when we talk about these tournaments, it's almost as if they're going to be a 7 seed and play a 2 seed, they basically have to win the Big East Conference tournament. Is it kind of an all or nothing deal with Creighton in your perspective, where either, maybe just lose right away and rest up and get yourself really going before the tournament and get your legs under you, or the other alternative is just win the whole thing and put yourself at the 7? Is there a little bit of that contrast there for this team, considering where they sit in the NCAA tournament kind of seedings right now?
I don't know. Last year, we certainly had that argument. It was okay, you play 6 people. Last year, it was okay, you play 6 people. You need to either win the darn thing or lose and get your legs under you for what we knew a year ago was going to had the potential to be a special tournament run. They were going to be a high seed. They had Baylor and Trey. and Ryan and Ashworth, and like we knew it was going to be a special tournament run. This, when you're an 8-9, you have no clue what's going to happen, because regardless of what you go through the first day, you're going to play a 1 seed in the second round, and who knows what happens. Creighton's certainly capable of beating one, depending on which one, but those teams are 1 seeds for a reason.
Yeah.
And so when it comes to the Big East tournament, like, I don't know if I confidently say it's as boom or bust as it was last year. They have a little bit more depth. Greg McDermott talked about that on Monday. They're kind of more equipped to handle a tournament setting, especially a conference tournament, than they were a year ago. So that'll help. But I don't know. Like, this team is really, like, they would either lose to Georgetown or DePaul if it was the bust. And that's not a good way to go into the NCAA tournament. Not that game, just like last year, not that the Big East tournament has any bearing on what you do in March Madness, but like, that's not a good way to get your footing going into the big dance. So no, I don't know if it's as boom or bust, but I was thinking about this the other day. To get to a 7 and get off the 8-9, you have to, probably win it. To get to an 8, to be able to wear a white jersey in the 8-9 matchup, you probably need to get to Saturday, because that would mean that you'd beat UConn, assumedly, along the way. Yeah. And I think UConn's sitting right on that 8 line, so they just flip, in my mind.
Hey, something that Max said earlier this week that you just brought up, that, you go through so many stats and you're like, whoa, wow, ooh, that's not good. I think I looked this up and did the math. It is kind of surprising. We know that there are 2 + 1 that get a majority of the minutes, but I think Creighton is either 3rd or 4th in the Big East in bench minutes, which at like looking at from afar, you'd be like, oh, that can't be true. That's kind of wild.
No, it is. And I was thinking about that the other day. It's a little bit of a few different things. Like, Greg McDermott has gone a lot deeper into his bench and trusted his bench a lot more than he has over the past couple of years. And maybe I shouldn't say trusted his bench. That's probably not fair, but it's so hard to, like, when you have Baylor Shireman, Trey Alexander, and Ryan Kalkbrenner, and you take any one of those guys, let alone multiple, off the floor, there's a noticeable drop-off. Like, that just is how it is. And so last year it was like, okay, we can't take these guys out, not because we don't have people who can't play behind them, because, like, we can't afford to take them out. And there's a little bit more parity on the roster this year. Like, we know it's Ashworth, we know it's Kalkbrenner, and then, Jemiah's been that third guy, but that doesn't always mean he's scoring. Like, that could just mean he's following around Isaiah Coleman and scoring 5 points, and that would mean Jackson McAndrew has to chip in double digits, which he has the past couple of games. So it's not too shocking based on the outlook of this particular season, but it is shocking comparative to what Creighton and Greg McDermott usually like to do, and that's to tighten up the rotation to, I don't know, usually about 7, no more than 8 during Big East play, and they just couldn't do that this year.
So Jemiah Neal, when Creighton played Marquette, UConn, and St. John's back to back, had 14 points, 12 points, and 19 points. He basically closed out that Marquette game at the Chi. I mean, he was absolutely nails, especially at the end of that game. But to end the year against 4 teams that are obviously worse, DePaul, Xavier, Seton Hall, and Butler, he scored 5 points, 8 points, 4 points, and 10 points. Is this are you concerned that he has kind of slacked off that pace at the end of the year? Or are you kind of just counting on, when the games are the biggest and they're playing the best opponents, that's when Jemiah shows up?
Yeah, I think it's probably more of the latter. Now, the inconsistency of his highs have been, kind of the talking point all season. Like, I remember that going back to November, and then we did it again once Pop went down. We did it again a month later. Like, that's just kind of been the thing. But again, like, he has found he has. I don't think I have to tell anyone that, like, if some certain guys on this roster are not scoring, they're going to have a hard time getting on the floor. Like, that just kind of is the way it is. Jemiah Neal is not one of them, because in that same thing, if he's not scoring, okay, well, he's locking down the other team's best scorer. Maybe that's Jason Green on some night, but those two usually switch. Excuse me. Strong defensive assignments every night. So I don't think so. And Jemiah's just kind of turned it on when it's absolutely mattered most. In that Marquette game, dropped a career high 24 at UConn when Creighton needed it. And then this goes all the way back to November, because they played that Notre Dame game at the Players Era Festival without Ryan Kalkbrenner, and he matched his career high with 22 points. Obviously, he broke that a few weeks later at UConn. But no, he's really just turned it on when the stage has been the biggest and the lights have been the brightest, and that's kind of going to be the case for every 40 minutes from here on out. The lights will get a little bit brighter and the stage a little bigger, and the season hanging in the balance.
Who would you take out Creighton out of this mix? Because there's a big game today at tomorrow at 1:30 that could put a fifth team into the tournament. The team you would not want to play right now at MSG would be who?
For Creighton, or just generally?
Well, you could,
right?
John, you could do both. For Creighton, the way their bracket works, or anybody that is in the tournament.
I don't know anybody who wants to play Xavier right now.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't. Now, here's the problem, because I think Xavier is, and I don't even know if sleeper is correct, but, like, Xavier is the sleeper pick to win the Big East tournament. The problem is, guys, to do that, you're going to have to beat Marquette, which is, they can hang with Marquette. Then you're going to have to beat St. John's on Friday night at Madison Square Garden.
Yeah, good luck.
Good luck. And then in the championship game Saturday, in theory, you'd have to beat one of either, let's say, Villanova, Creighton, or UConn. So that's not a favorable path to do those three in 3 days. And then, so I wouldn't want to play Xavier if I was any team. And then Creighton specific, like, they do not want to play Villanova. They would much rather play UConn again, because I think they can sit and look and say, okay, we beat UConn in stores, and then it took Liam McNeely having one of the best games by any freshman in Big East history to beat us on our home floor. And I think they feel confident that they could keep McNeely from dropping 38 again, and that they could do the things they did elsewhere in both meetings with UConn. But Villanova really, really, really gives them matchup problems because of Eric Dixon's ability to, one, space the floor, and then, two, put the ball on the floor and get to the rim. So they do not want to see Villanova. They'd much, much, much rather see UConn, which is weird to say.
So I talked about one guy who maybe didn't have the best end to the regular season, Jemiah Neal. Let's talk about one guy who had a great end to the regular season, Jackson McAndrew. Had 14 and 17 points respectfully in his last two games. But something that caught my eye, and it was a tweet that you sent out. I couldn't find the tweet, John, for whatever reason, where Greg McDermott was talking about Jackson McAndrew's development as a defensive player, and that he could never imagine earlier in the year putting McAndrew in some really, really big moments. What have you seen from just the freshman's development as a really important defensive piece on this team?
Yeah, I mean, I talked to Greg McDermott in September, like early September, right when they started camp. And we sat down for, I think, like half an hour just to talk about the roster and what he expected from guys and the outlook on the season, et cetera. And we got to the freshmen at the time. Obviously, Larry Johnson was included in that group, and he was excited about all three freshmen. But the one thing that he not knocked, but pointed out about Jackson McAndrew was that it was going to take some time for him to develop into a defender. And that was kind of the thing. It was like, is he going to compete for minutes early? And he said, if he defends. So that was kind of the biggest talking point when it came to Jackson McAndrew. And he is just in a different world as a defender now compared to where he was then. He's in a different world as a defender now compared to where he was in the middle of January.
Yeah.
And I think the really underrated thing, or the thing that maybe goes unnoticed, is like, he has really developed a relationship with Ryan Kalkbrenner throughout this season. And that guy's a pretty good defender, I'd say. So I don't know, maybe he picked up a few things along the way, but no, he's really just kind of he gambled a lot. Like, he'd get beat and then try and swipe at a ball early in the year. And he's learned that in Creighton's system, with the 7'1" center hanging around the rim, it's okay to get beat a little bit.
Yeah.
And you don't have to gamble as much to recover. So I really think he's just settled in and walled up, used his length, not left his feet untimely. He's left his feet on time and really just used his length. That's a pretty long wingspan. And he's used every bit of it to keep defenders or to keep scorers in front of him.
Safe travels out to MSG. Look forward to your coverage tomorrow night. Creighton plays at 6. Stay safe out there. Enjoy the food. Have fun.
Yeah.
So why can't every conference tournament be like the Big 12 and the Big East?
Where they're just really good?
Or fans, like, you spent time, down at, Hilton South with all the Iowa State fans. And now, you get another year to experience out at the Big East.
Yeah.
Like, I know conference tournaments are fun, and especially the mid-major ones, but it's like the Big East stands alone because of the arena and because of the history.
Right.
And then the Big 12 has gotten, such a great run down in Kansas City. I just wish there were more places, and maybe it's because those two just stay where they are.
Yeah.
That have become so special.
I think so. And they both, they both have history in a sense, like it's, and then the location, like it's easy to lure Kansas and K-State fans. And
sure,
let's think back, guys, like you could get Iowa State, Mizzou, Kansas State, Texas Tech. Like, yeah, of course we'll all drive up to Kansas City. No problem.
Yeah.
And then out in the Big East, it's like, well, that's St. John's home arena now. And you can take the train down from Stores. And so no, that's been a big part of it. I wish more conference tournament kind of had that prestige. But I guess the Big 12 and Big East wouldn't be what they were if everyone had that.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for your time as always. Enjoy the week, and we'll talk next week ahead of what will be another busy week for you on the road in the NCAA tournament.
Thanks, guys.
That's
talk to you, Johnny.
John Walker. So there's Indianapolis, Chicago.
Yeah.
I like the Big Ten tournament in Chicago. I love Indianapolis, but I like it in Chicago. I didn't mind it in Minneapolis. I thought they did a really good job last year. But in my mind, and it's on the bucket list to go to MSG to see the Big East tournament, for all of us old heads out there, and it's not just because Nebraska was pretty successful. Man, the Big 8 was a banger at Kemper.
Yeah.
I mean, the Big 8 tournament at Old Kemper Arena, you could not beat that. Because you would stand outside and you would buy stubs from the teams that had gotten eliminated. And, it was close enough for everybody essentially could drive. Even people in Colorado, you'd stop on 70, go across the state of Kansas, when Colorado was good.
Yeah.
But everybody would drive to Kansas City.
You could have 30,000 in there. That's
and I mean this as respectfully as possible. College basketball and just college sports in general was better when it was mom and pop.
Yep.
When it was
conferences were regional,
when it was smaller and regional, and people came together, and it wasn't the big flashing lights or anything like that. When it was just you and the guys you graduated college with, and the guys you graduated high school with, who went to the rival schools. When you would go together, when you would plan out trips like that. When it was a little bit more contingent and more about you and less about the country. That's when college sports was a little bit better. And we've added all of these big brands and sponsorships and courts, and we're playing in NBA arenas, and we got to travel all these distances to go to these quote unquote big games that happen every single year. Like, you kind of lose that passion and drive and connection with the sport when you do it that way.
Man, Kemper, which for people that are in the youth basketball world, they know Kemper looks completely different now as a youth basketball facility, which is incredible. The other thing, we could have gotten the Big 12 tournament here in Omaha.
That would have been.
It's about, from the story I heard, it's probably about 15, 16 years ago that
pre-Sprint Center?
That the Big 12 was interested in putting the Big 12 men's basketball tournament here in Omaha.
The Quest Center was pretty new then.
And there was not enough organization on the bid to put it together, but they wanted to bring it here because the arena at the time was relatively new and it just didn't happen. I wonder what happens with Big East women's basketball. You know, it's been in Connecticut, seems like forever, and they support it, but would Omaha make a run at the Big East women's tournament? I've always thought, why wouldn't Omaha make a run at the Big Ten women's tournament? We're not getting the Big Ten men's tournament.
Right.
We're not getting the Big East men's tournament. You're not getting the Summit League tournament. But like the women on the Big Ten and the Big East, I wonder if Omaha would have interest in getting involved to try and get it here.
Go.
And especially with where Big Ten women's basketball is right now, like it's taken a major step up because of UCLA and USC being in the conference and those two being powers. And you still have some other really good Big Ten women's basketball teams that can compete year in and year out with that. So like this women's Big Ten tournament was really great this year.
But the one thing I loved, and Jimmy, you were right in the mix of it as the voice of KU women, is they used to run the men and the women at the same time. So you'd play in Municipal Auditorium, which is showing its age and it's an ancient building.
A lot of history, though.
But you had, like the Iowa State fans could come down and they knew their men were going to be playing on Friday and even Saturday in the final. Their women were probably going to be playing on Friday.
They invaded.
But now, just like the Big Ten women, even with Juju Watkins the other day and finishing on a Sunday, and last year, Caitlin Clark, in Nebraska played the overtime thriller. It kind of got lost.
It does get lost.
That,
1,000,000%. And the thing
in the Big 12 moved for the first time, Jimmy. They moved up the women. That were
second time.
Second time. So the women are before the men.
They need to move it back.
It gets totally lost because you're also like thinking about like you're kind of taking a break a little bit last week, right? Because next week is going to be such a big week, and so you may not be paying attention so much to that. But at the same time, it's like when you talk about having it on two different weekends, if you're a really big fan of both the women's team and the men's team, which a lot of people here in Nebraska are and Creighton as well, don't you have to kind of pick?
And Iowa State.
You can't make two. It's going to be hard to make two trips. You have to make one trip out for the women, one trip out for the men. That's a lot of money to spend. If you kind of put it together, you do one trip all in general, you go to one or the other. Like that's perfect. Now,
Dee Marina's been on the East Coast. He covered the Mohegan Sun for the women. Now he just goes down to New York City.
Yeah, I think it just kind of detracts away from like the women. I think because there is a benefit to having everybody there all at once, and you never know too.
It was fun.
There were people who go to men's basketball games, and maybe they're not doing anything on the Friday, and they go, "Oh, hey." That's a pretty cool matchup. Like, those two women's teams.
That happened in Kansas City.
I know who that person. Let me go to that game. I just want to watch basketball.
Summit League men and women run at the same time. So on Sunday, the women's final was at 3 and the men's final was at 8.
My Huggins story happened because both tournaments were there at that time. So you had people in the same hotel for the men's tournament and for the women's tournament. And it added, and like you said about Kansas City, it was already a big deal, but now you added all of that in there. And then if you got the weather just right, like it is this week,
I say this tongue in cheek, but sometimes you got to recognize AAU's got it right with how they do the tournaments. Everybody under one roof and one hotel and one tournament playing 34 games at a time. You don't know your butt from your elbow.
Hey, the Missouri Valley Conference might be the only league that does the women after the men. So the men go to St. Louis, the Arch Madness. The women, and at first when they went out to the Quad City, it was like, why? But they've had great success out there. So the Missouri Valley Conference women, I don't think begin until tomorrow, but they finish like a week after the men. I think that might be the only conference.
Why would they do that? Wouldn't that give them a?
They separate because they're not going to go to St. Louis, so they go to the Quad Cities and they support the women's tournament out there. It's kind of cool.
That is kind of cool.
You got Northern Iowa, not a very far trip away. Of course, Des Moines.
But then all the rest
Bradley,
of women's
Southern
basketball
Illinois,
has like
Illinois
a week
State.
off, and they don't. Like that's kind of a disadvantage for the Missouri Valley Conference teams, right?
Yeah, I think they wanted it to get attention, so they play their final maybe on Sunday, and then the women's bracket comes out at 7, I think, on Sunday night.
That doesn't. I mean, from a competitive standpoint.
How cool would that have been in this town back in 05, 06?
I'd have been here.
Big 12 men's basketball tournament here.
Literally, I would have been
Omaha,
working.
I mean, I know we already have the College World Series, but it would be cool to get more big events here like that.
That was 19 years ago today. The only reason I know this is because I was calling the championship game, and then we get waken up that morning on Sunday, and I get told that there's a tree on my car because they had a microburst in Lawrence. So I was like, all right, let's go call a game.
It's better.
It could have been here.
Better than waking up and telling you have COVID 5 years ago.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, anything's better than that.
All right. Brandon Vogel still to come before we're out on a Wednesday on 1620 The Zone. All right, let's give you a quick update. Boys State basketball tournament is underway. The mustard-colored jackets are out on NCN.
They look good.
Beautiful.
They look good.
Love that they're going to they do all these games.
Yeah. I like
Michael Shively.
Shively. I think it might be. I don't know. I don't know if it's
rock
Shively or Shively.
Should
He's
rock
a
some
former
plaid
Salt
pants
Dogs
with that.
announcer.
Lincoln Lutheran leads Fillmore Central 28-10 at halftime.
Sad in Geneva today.
He's getting a lot of airtime. This is a really in-depth sideline report here. He's been on there for a good 2.5 minutes.
Maybe he's retiring on air.
We need we need a buzzer beater on air.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah, something like Halliburton last night.
When you weren't
What
here,
a 4-point play to win that game.
Yeah, you think he is Larry Johnson?
I thought Giannis was going to go
Fight
all the way down
everybody?
all the way down the floor and win that game.
He had a
Those
good
Indiana
shot.
Pacers jerseys, I don't know how I feel about them.
I was just glad the road
They're
team was in
a-
color and
They're
the
like a
home
City
team
Connect
white.
tribute.
or whatever. Yeah, I'm so sick and tired of the NBA jerseys and every year
Yeah.
they're trotting out 7 different styles every single year. You know what? Go back to home and away, and everybody gets like a black or gray alternate, and then you get a Christmas Day uniform and you get a St. Patty's Day uniform. That's what you get. Those 5.
Millard West has hired the new football coach.
Oh.
David McEnany, who has been in Millard North, God, since I've been covering high school football in this town. He comes from Millard North. He will take over at Millard West, according to a statement from Lance Smith, who is the AD over at Millard West. So the Fred Petito coaching tree has put another one at Millard North and now one at Millard West. All right, Brandon Vogel going to join us next from counterread.com. All right, welcome back in. We welcome in our good friend, Brandon Vogel from counterread.com. Good morning.
Good morning, gentlemen.
Hey, I want you to speak on this because you know this pretty well. I think it's pretty cool that coaches, Vic Schaefer, the head women's basketball coach at Texas, was most recent. Paul Feinbaum does a great job with this. The fact that student reporters are being recognized by college coaches when sometimes you think they have no idea who they are and they don't give them the time of the day. I think that's a good thing in our business that I've seen over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, I would completely agree. I mean, when you think about what college should be in an idealistic sense for anyone, but in our arena, sports and journalism, um, those people should be in basically a learning environment, but also an environment where they're respected and they get to know these coaches and these athletes. And sometimes I think, at Nebraska, like the College of Journalism is great. My colleague Aaron Sorensen teaches there. But the media contingent around the Huskers is so big that, I didn't go to Nebraska or through the journalism college, but I could see how it would be really intimidating to be a student journalist in a room with, 40 people who are there to ask their questions of the head football coach. So in some of these other sports, particularly, I think student journalists have a real opportunity to, one, feel a little bit more comfortable, but start honing those reporting chops. So to see that happen elsewhere, to see those people be invited on as guests or called on in a press conference or mentioned by name even, is a great thing.
Definitely was intimidating, but shout out to Vicky and Keith Mann over there. They always did a good job, at least taking care of me and the people who reported on the team around that. Hey, yesterday, Matt Rhule took the podium for a very, very, very long presser where he kind of just got everything out of the way and everything. I don't want to say off his chest, but addressed so much about the team because as we've seen him talk throughout the last couple of months, it's been a lot of national stuff. Yesterday, it was good to get local. Just in general, Brandon, from what you've heard, just your biggest takeaway from Matt Rhule's presser.
Yeah, I thought the most interesting thing to me was, at points during that press conference, Matt Rhule was asked about the non-conference scheduling, which showed up on other shows. And at times, effectively said, look, people ask me questions, I'm going to answer them, or I'm going to try to answer them. The one question he didn't entertain was the one about being off-season champs, which I found pretty interesting, in saying that. And then he also, in that same answer, said something I think he said before. He's like, we've kind of always pointed to year 3, and my reaction was, I was like, keep saying that all off season. It's really, I think, going to raise the stakes on this year, and the stakes are pretty high for this year. But
Yeah.
it was just telling to me, kind of where he chose to be I'm Mr. Transparency, and then in that one he declined. And to be fair to him, he hasn't been here for all of those off seasons. That's kind of a media fan topic. I get it. I wasn't disparaging for not answering it, but it was just interesting that he kind of had an immediate reaction to that of I'm not here for that one.
Brandon Vogel from Counter Read joining us. So one of the things he brought up, among other things, is his quarterback. And so for the second time in the most recent local availability, he talked about his weight, but he also talked about let's make Dylan Raiola great to go from year 1 to year 2. And then whatever happens this year, let's see what we can do next year to go from year 2 to year number 3. To become great, or your definition of what a Dylan Raiola great would be, how do we get there and what does that look like?
Yeah, so I've looked at some of the numbers for this. I haven't written them up yet because I'm still trying to make some sense of them. But this is a key time for a young quarterback. There's not a lot of true freshmen or even redshirt freshmen, honestly, that come in and get thrown into the fire in that way right away. So it becomes a little bit hard to parse. But this year 1 to year 2 jump is big, and it's not a foregone conclusion that it happens based on what I've seen. It's kind of a 50-50 deal. And I think from a numbers perspective, the biggest thing becomes cutting down interceptions, which sort of defined the back half of 2024 for Dylan. Um, if you're gonna, I guess what I'm trying to say is the steady progression of like, oh, freshmen, some bumps in the road expected, fewer, and then by year 3, you're ready for the NFL or getting ready. It doesn't go that way as often as we would assume. Like the progression isn't that steady. So for him, I think it becomes avoiding those interceptions. Rhule again mentioned his size and the need to be a little bit more fleet of foot. That's something that I think you could add that would be immediately noticeable in 2025. And then, just making some easier decisions. I think one of the things I'll always remember from 2024 is the arm talent was very clearly there. But when you have that gift as a young player, you might rely on it too much. And experience means not doing that and just kind of taking the simple play when it's there.
Yeah, no, I mean, big plays win Heisman's, but 7-yard, checkdowns, win championships, in my opinion. And so I think that's a great insight from there. Brandon, something he talked about yesterday, the injury report was a little revealing, especially on the O-line. Turner Corcoran, Teddy Prohaska, Henry Lutovsky, and Gunnar Gatula are all either out or limited for spring. And he talked about their model of the O-line. Year 1, you come in your red shirt. Year 2, you become a backup. Year 3, hopefully you're a starter, and then you work from there. Can you spin zone the injuries on this offensive line as a positive thing? Because now you have guys like Jason Machacek, Sam Sledge, Grant Bricks, and Sewell. Well, I think left 2 might be. Regardless of that, you just have younger offensive linemen who can now progress maybe more with more reps in spring.
Yeah, I think you can spin it that way during spring. I mean, when you look at a big picture with rules, like you come in, you redshirt, you're a backup, then you're ready to go. Like Corcoran's not in that group because he's played so much, but Gatula kind of is. So I think anytime you're missing reps, it's not the best thing for you. But this kind of takes on, because he's talked about it so much, the year 3 thing, but just on the offensive line. It's like, okay, well, if that's the plan for these guys, like you need to see some guys who like you hadn't maybe thought of a whole lot be solid starters or really good backups who can play. And it was interesting that Rocco Spindler also went yesterday because Notre Dame experienced that to a great degree in 2024, and they were able to sustain it. So the big picture question is like, is Nebraska anywhere close to that in terms of its O-line depth, but also talent?
The biggest, because I go back to November and Matt Rhule talked about Ty Robinson. He said, I coach because of guys like Ty. And yesterday he talked about how proud he was of him. Well, number 9 ain't going to be in the middle of that defense. And there is Riley Van Poppel, who looks like a younger Ty Robinson physically. There is Cam Lenhart, who is much bigger when people get to see him come out of the lab for spring football. Judy is a nice piece. There are some guys that are going to get chances, but Ty Robinson will not be here. Where do you think there is one area of Ty Robinson's game that'll be the most difficult thing for Nebraska to fix, not in spring, but will last, do you think, throughout the entire year?
Well, from 2024, and I didn't feel this way previously, even though it was clear that Ty Robinson was a good player. Like his ability last season to move the line of scrimmage was, I try to watch a lot of college football and do, as good as you'd find in the country. And do they have a guy there who's going to be able to come close to that? I mean, meeting it or matching it seems unlikely, but we'll see. And I mean, there's a lot of intangibles too with Ty, who was out there. He was a guy they'd put up there for press conferences, but I think his work did most of the talking. I think Nebraska can find those sorts of guys. It's just the actual impact on the game that Ty and Nash too, in tandem with him had. That's probably going to be the hardest thing, I think, to replace for Nebraska in 2025. And what does the defense look like if you don't have that? Because replacing it to a 2023 level might even be hard.
Out of the players that spoke at the podium yesterday, who were you most impressed with?
It's a really good group, and I thought a really smart move to put up some of these new additions. I was really impressed with Dane Key, his kind of story, and he had every opportunity to, go. He could have gone anywhere he wanted to, and his retelling of being challenged by Holgerson a little bit. Obviously, he had some great familiarity, which played in Nebraska's favor with some of the assistants that came over. But it seemed clear that he knows his role, number one receiver, and embraces it. And he's a guy who has a ton of potential and a ton of production backing it up. So when you look at key players for the season ahead, he's got to be in the top 3 or 4 for me at this stage.
Your thoughts on Pat Stewart and where he ranks on the importance chain under Matt Rhule?
Yeah, I think I think his impact will be greater later. It's still new at this stage. Like we all assume the settlement's going through and then you'll start navigating that. But I mean, we might see his biggest impact with like the upcoming recruiting and then eventual transfer class. So we might be most of the way through the 2025 season before we start saying, oh, there's the Pat Stewart effect showing up. That said, one of the off-season darlings in college football broadly has been Texas Tech with the commitment they made and the guy they had running the show in essentially their GM role. So we'll see. Like it's becoming, I think, part of the game where this time of year, some of those off-season stories are like, oh, look at what this school did. And here's one of the key architects behind it. I think you hope, if you're a Nebraska fan, that's what the Huskers are looking at with that hire.
Your thoughts on Matt Rhule's comments on Mike Eckler and the fact that he did kind of say he's a great recruiter and a great evaluator, and they're going to look to use him in that regard.
Yeah, I really appreciated it, and I kind of took the transparency at face value there. Honestly, I kind of have the same reaction to the popular candidate. Anytime one of these jobs come open, I'm like, probably not going to be that guy, right? And that was the surprising thing to me with this hire is that it did end up being it, and like the numbers backed it up, and his history. Rarely do all of these things fall into place, and I appreciated Rhule talking pretty directly about that. Looking towards the season ahead. I'm actually writing this for tomorrow. I decided to start like creating an equation. Like, what's the equation for this season to like be a success? Not necessarily using numbers exactly, but and I think special teams are a really big part of that in a way that I wouldn't have done for the previous preseason equations over the past like 5-6 years. It was always on the to-do list, always on the want list. But here I think it's a really potential impactful part that has to be included. And for Nebraska to get the guy that they did, given some of the initial reservations Rhule had, certainly make me, I think, optimistic about that piece of it.
Nebraska ever had a post-TO, a celebrity assistant coach? Not named Turner Gill?
Yeah, it's hard to think of one. Like Dante Williams kind of approached it a little bit, but he was here for such a short time. Mark Whipple was just too grouchy to be a celebrity coach, though that was kind of like what he was brought in to be. I liked Whipple quite a bit, but so I don't think that they really have. Tony White, with the job that he got, certainly could have been in that category, but his personality and demeanor just wasn't there for that. So that's a really good point. I'll have to think about it a little bit more, but nothing comes immediately to mind.
All right, you teased it a little bit. What do you and Aaron have coming up for all of the subscribers to counterread.com?
Yeah, so kind of spinning off some of Rhule's stuff and an idea that I didn't intend to do last year, but did by just accident with kind of like, what's this offseason about? Like, where is Nebraska trying to get to and how does it happen? So boiling that down for tomorrow, Aaron has started doing kind of a Friday 5, which is a quick rundown of 5 things that caught her eye each week. So that'll be coming again later this week. And then yeah, we'll be off into next week, and probably more spring football and more recruiting on the way in particular, as this is a pretty good time to touch in on that.
Which Aaron touched on the edition that showed up in your inbox yesterday. As always, my friend, thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Brandon.
Brandon Vogel from counterread.com, 24/7. That's my number, 24/7.
24/7.
Dylan Rhule, 24 touchdown passes, 7 interceptions or less. If you get to those numbers, you'll be cooking with some peanut oil.
What's the completion percentage? That's going to be my for him with how efficient he is. He's just got to be efficient and take the easy throws.
About points, sir.
It is. It's about everything. It's about everything.
About points.
It's about everything.
Yeah, you'll learn. That'll do it for the show. We're back in tomorrow with more ball. Creighton plays tomorrow night. We'll know who they're playing. DePaul or Georgetown?
DePaul.
Ooh. Back-to-back. Ooh, that would be uncomfortable for Ed Cooley.
Yep.
Back-to-back
DePaul.
wins
I think
by
they
DePaul
got
over
it.
Georgetown.
I think Holtman, I mean, look, they won 2 games at the end of the year. I think they're actually playing some
True.
inspired basketball. Like, I think it'd be big for DePaul, and I think they know that.
All right, we'll do that tomorrow. Crossover's coming up next. We'll see you in 20 hours with Gary and Matt and Jimmy on 1620 The Zone.